This dude's called Mr. Pet Shop because he can munch on any creature and snag its vibes. Animals, beasts, toxic things, even stuff that legit shouldn't be messing with. And every time he chows down on something, his body morphs. That's how he scored the wild title Mr. Pet Shop. He was out there hunting rare animals all over the globe, gobbling them up and flexing their powers for himself. He became a boss at illegal poaching, raking in a ton of cash. But after years of playing the game, the International Special Forces finally trap him in the African jungle. His ride-or-die hunting buddy turns out to be an undercover agent who took half a year to earn his trust. The armed crew shoves him into the van. Sure, escaping in a spot like this seems impossible, but they had no clue what kind of beast they had on their hands. His muscles twist, his skin shifts, and his teeth sharpen, turning him into a legit monster. In mere seconds, the world's most wanted criminal becomes a predator that no bullet can stop. And by the time the chaos dies down, everyone in that van is toast. Mr. Pet Shop switches back to his human form and scans the area. With his beastly senses, he knows something's gone super wrong. Kim busts out of the van and spots two moons in the sky. That's when it hits him. He's not on Earth anymore. Suddenly, he hears some rustling. Sounds like a pack of wolves is coming for him. Being one of their own, Kim remembers that wild beasts are supposed to know who to bounce from by instinct. Or maybe not. As the wolves pounce at him with their jaws wide, Kim grits his teeth and roars, transforming into a lion. But the wolves don't flinch when they see a predator right in front of them. While the lion takes down one of them, the rest of the pack bails. Finally, Kim munches on the wolf, which is his first meal in ages and the first taste of this crazy place. But as soon as he sinks his lion fangs into the wolf, he can't break through the skin and turns into a hippo. After finishing his meal with only bones left behind, Kim reflects on how a simple wolf hide was tough enough to withstand the jaws of a hippo, and even a shark's teeth barely ripped it apart. Besides the oddly tough wolf hide, what baffled him the most was how the wolves didn't even blink at his roar. Scientists would say it should have shook them enough to weaken them for a sec. And for wolves that size, they should have stumbled. With at least some common sense, Kim looks at the two moons and figures common knowledge is useless here. Later, our guy tears apart what's left of the bone and tosses it onto a pile of animal bones. He then tells us it's been a week since his first meal, and in that time he's been hunting and munching on all kinds of animals in the woods, like a bear with massive paws, a snake, and a deer with crazy sharp antlers. What's wild is these animals ain't that different from the ones on Earth. To find some kind of unique knowledge for this world that could hook him up, Kim heads out, turning his hand into a wolf's paw. He spots a human in the woods and figures there are humans in this world too. Thinking he could score some intel from him, he sneaks up from behind and grabs the human with his giant wolf claw. Kim drops a bomb that he can add any body part he's eaten right onto his own bod, but he can't whip this skill out whenever there are a bunch of limits. He adds that he can't snag body parts from things like lobsters or centipedes since they have way different body structures, and he can't mash skills together. Our guy tries to chat with the human, but with his hawk-like head, he can't talk human style. As the human locks eyes with Kim and sees him, it scares the living daylights out of him, and he bolts. But the freaky creature catches him with those claws and takes him out without hesitating. While the human, soaked in blood and trying to say something, Kim realizes they're on a totally different wavelength. Watching the human lying there helpless, our dude has no reason or will to save him. And even if he was breathing, they wouldn't have a way to talk. As cold as it sounds, Kim feels nothing inside since he sees himself as a whole different species from this human. In situations like this, he plans on munching on the human because it'd be faster to get some info from him. Looks like Kim's skill lets him change part of his brain into that of the creature he's eaten, giving him access to their memories. Eventually, thanks to his powers and the human's not-so-willing cooperation, our dude picks up the language they speak in this world, and when he snags the human's clothes, he hits the jackpot finding a monster guide in that dead guy's stuff. With that guide, Kim figures out what monsters and systems are floating around in this world. Through these systems, he dreams big about reaching his ultimate goals that he had tossed aside back on Earth. Fast forward 2 months, and our dude learns about the healing powers of a troll. He hunts the troll and smashes its brain only for it to regenerate within a month. Thinking this info is off the charts compared to what the guide told him, he hits the troll with his wolf claw, and it stirs back to life. With the troll's face chilling inside a bucket minus its body, the savage boy seems to check how long he can burn it to peel off its skin. Kim wonders if the troll has no tolerance for acids or toxins and how much its body can really heal. Still having loads to experiment with, he struts over to the king himself, which throws Kim for a loop. As the prince greets his pops, the king seems to know what's up with the prince. So while snagging some human threads, this dude totally lucked out and found a monster guide in the dead guy's stuff. With that guide, Kim figured out what kind of monsters and systems were chilling in this world. With those systems in mind, he was all like, yo, I can finally chase my dreams that I ditched back on Earth. Fast forward 2 months, and our boy discovers that trolls have some serious regeneration skills. After taking down the troll and caving in its skull, it managed to bounce back in just a month. Thinking this info was next level compared to what the guide said, he zapped the troll with his wolf claw, and it woke up like, what's good? With the troll's head chilling in a bucket and its body just hanging out, this wild kid is checking to see how long he has to torch it to peel off the skin. Kim's wondering if this troll can't handle acids or poisons and how fierce its regeneration game is. Still got so much more to experiment with, he strolls over to the king, leaving Kim totally shook. When the prince greets his pops, the king looks like he already knows what went down with his son. With a wicked stare in his eyes, the troll's brain is buzzing about what crazy experiment he'll run on the creature. After snagging almost all the critters, he's got his sights set on being the top dog of monsters. The next scene drops us into the Onyx Oaks crew in the gnarly northern woods, where a warrior bumps into the Onyx. The warrior spills the tea about the prophecy, and it spills the beans that a monster is going to pop up in the great forest and chow down on everything. It finds snatching up their skills, claiming it'll be the ultimate beast. We catch a peek of a beast that looks like him, who totally chows down on the troll. The scene shifts to the troll zone in the great forest, where we spot the troll boss checking out a human footprint he just discovered. Looks like they're hunting someone since they figure out a rogue has been munching on humans solo. The boss tells his crew to find the humans, before it's just a graveyard out there. Surprisingly, they follow the footprint straight to a cave, where Mr. Kim's giving that poor troll a seriously rough time. They catch a whiff of a human as one of the troll's senses. Something's off, and tips off his boss, who's too busy thinking this is a setup from the ones they're after so they can feast on the human solo. Out of nowhere, they get a whiff of troll blood. But before the boss can act, our guy bursts out of the cave. His animal instinct kicks in, and he takes out the troll heads, figuring he needs them as test subjects. But now, that's a no-go. As the trolls watch their boss getting wrecked right before their eyes, they're shook, seeing the monster rocking troll muscles and a big bear's paw. One of them charges at the monster, but his hand gets chomped off by those lethal venom fangs, leaving him paralyzed and totally motionless. Turns out Mr. Kim's been playing mad scientist for a while and figured out that paralyzing the trolls is the ultimate way to shut down their quick healing. While the trolls screeching in terror trying to warn his buddies to bail, our dude makes it his mission to wipe them all out. Then it's revealed that Mr. Kim stumbles onto something fresh from the Beast Skills book. Although he thought this guidebook was just a game, at first the stuff he's eaten in this world gives abilities that match skills. Convinced skills are the real deal, Kim picks up a few major insights from his experiments. First off, skills don't cut it against critters without skills. Like the viper's deadly bites using venom skills to freeze their prey. They just leave him with scars, not the venom. Secondly, attacks that aren't skills still pack a punch against opponents with skills. Like after hitting a big bear's arm with venom skill and viper fangs, both managed to lock down the bear. Thirdly, the reason why those hard wolves who are immune to debuffs freaked out from his roar was probably due to his tiger's roar, not some random animal around here. In other words, since Mr. Kim's an earth dude, he's got immunity to their skills, but his attacks are lethal for them. That's why he can strut around as the apex predator here, since Earth's got humanity ruling it. No matter what creature he munches on, he can't outshine humanity with their tech and weaponry, easily smashing all creature limits. In contrast, this world is overflowing with strong monsters who love snacking on humans, and things like nuclear bombs and science aren't even a thing here, meaning no one's stopping him. Ever since Mr. Kim was a kid, he dreamed of being the apex predator. To hit that goal, all he's got to do is feast on the creatures lurking here, like a troll with that epic regeneration, an ogre flexing immense strength, and a monster breathing dragonfire. In the next beat, we see someone pop up as a slime that can gobble anything and wonders if this is one of those fantasy worlds he saw in cartoons, thinking it's totally God's plan for him to be the strongest. The slimy dude checks out his status screen and notices his skill, which looks like it's all about consuming souls. Just then, a sneaky snake crawls out of the bushes and the slime straight up devours it. Grabbing the skill that paralyzes with venom sucks down his soul each time he consumes. Not caring much about his dwindling soul, the slime sees himself as the main character and just keeps munching down on everything. Seems like the poor guy's backstory of getting mistreated stems from dealing with a useless parent. Apparently Slime's got an ability that rivals a monster, and it'll slowly sap its soul, eventually leading to its doom. Finally, the goddess of Elmwood picks him as a disposable rather than a main character. The next scene drops us in Elmwood under the goddess's protection, where we spot the warrior chosen by the goddess. Looks like this warrior once got taken out by the monster and met a gruesome end. Due to the monster's rampage all over the place, the monster, with its unstoppable might, rained calamity upon the world. Things took a wild turn, and the warrior seems to have bounced back to his former self from 10 years ago, realizing this is his last shot from the goddess to stop that monster. As he starts spilling some divine revelation, a jolt of pain hits him like a lightning bolt, and he wonders if it's because he fibbed, or if he's getting punished for breaking warrior rules. The elder gets curious about the revelation he is about, and asks for more deets. That's when the warrior clues him in that a monster that eats and snags skills is about to be born in this forest, and he's here to shut down that wicked beast from wreaking havoc down the line. To have flipped back to his old self from 10 years ago, realizing this is his last shot given by the goddess to stop that beast. As he starts spilling about a divine message, he gets hit with this crazy lightning-like pain and thinks, am I getting punished for lying, or is this for breaking the warrior rules? The elder is totally curious about the revelation and asks for the deets. That's when the warrior's spill pain hits him like a lightning bolt, and he's tripping if it's 'cause he lied, or if this is just karma for messing with the warrior rules. The elder's pretty curious about what he's spilling and wants the deets. That's when the warrior drops the news that a monster that snacks on skills is about to pop up in this forest, and he's here to squash that evil beast in the future. Healing and cure magic to make sure her baby is all good, and finally nails it. While she's checking in with the baby dragon after cuddling him, the little dude starts wailing. The elder totally treats this like a big deal and brings up those trolls that went missing over the last 2 months. He wraps it up by saying the monster's definitely after the troll's powers because that skill is one of a kind. He notes that if they go hunting for the trolls now, they might just track down the monster's lair that the warrior's been chasing. The warrior tightens his fist, vowing this time the monster won't get to call the shots. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim has been messing with the trolls and somehow only one's still hanging on, looking like it wants to be put out of its misery. While the rest of the trolls are getting wiped out in the experiments, our guy who's soaked up all the tea on trolls finally decides it's time to end this one. Just when he's about to take the troll out, he discovers that boiling its blood can turn it into a rad healing potion. Sick, right? So Kim lets it live, but plans to torture it again. The poor thing is throwing out curses and begging for death. Then, as he keeps flipping through the guidebook, he stumbles on this dope species, the forest lizard man, who weirdly looks human-like. Hooked on the idea of a lizard man being some mashup of a mammal and a reptile, our dude flashes a wicked grin because it seems like he's found his next target. Later in the epic forest swamp zone, the lizard man spots a troll-like critter chilling in their hood and wonders where they've been hiding out since nobody's seen them for a minute. Meanwhile, one of the lizard folk throws down on the troll for daring to invade their turf. The monster creeps up on the troll and realizes it's about to witness something chilling as it faces a gigantic creature with a snake head and a troll's hand. Before the lizard man can dip, our cold-hearted dude snags the lizard man by the neck and gobbles it up like it's a snack. As the other lizard folk are feeling disgust, they spot this freaky critter and realize that if it stays around, their race is toast. But when one of them tries to take the monster out, the lizard man is left shook after seeing the monster's crazy regeneration skills as Kim heals his wounds in a flash. Then he goes all savage on the lizard men, using their own poison against them. The scene switches to a slime monster munching away, totally unimpressed with orcs after finishing up one. Catching a whiff of some bloody vibes in the cave, the slime slides in and uses his wolf sense to peek around, spotting tons of dead lizard men. Thinking he hit the jackpot, the slime devours all the bodies and thinks he scored big time. As he slurps down his feast, he gains 3 new powers from the lizard man. Then, out of nowhere, the warrior pops up behind him. The slime turns around to see a human standing there and asks the warrior what's his deal. The warrior, sensing a troll's vibes and some bad energy, is taken aback by the little slime. While the slime fires back, asking who this dude is, the warrior senses some evil and deduces that this ain't no ordinary slime, but a straight-up evil creature. Coming clean, the human says he's a warrior. The slime, acting all high and mighty, like the main character, thinks the warrior's here to help him level up. It's like even in anime, they start off with something huge, like eating a dragon, right? The slime's bummed to find out the warrior's just some basic nobody. The warrior's catching on that the gooey guy's low-key throwing shade at him, but the slime's reminiscing that a warrior is picked by the goddess and calls them trash. Going off on the goddess, the slime calls her an airhead and offers her a spot in his future harem. As soon as that spills out, the warrior isn't taking it lightly. Many have tossed insults at him and his folks, but no one has ever dissed the goddess who created the Elmwood continent, saying nobody gets to throw shade at her. The warrior draws his sword. Looks like the slime's asking for trouble when he asks the warrior if she's serious and makes it clear he's the main character in this show, wondering what kind of title he'd snag for taking out a warrior. This cocky creature decides he's going to chow down on her and snatch her skills. The slime launches an attack, but she slices him with her sword, thinking that if the slime's guts disappear, it can't heal what's been lost. But this slime is a whole different monster, regenerating super fast thanks to that troll power he gobbled up. Watching the slime bounce back, the warrior starts feeling like this slime could be some future disaster. Gripping her sword with mad strength, she calls him a monster of destruction and whacks him with the ultimate strike, making the slime scream in pain. The scene then flips to Kim narrating that with an animal head setup, they can't spit words like humans. But after munching on a lizard man, they can chat like humans even with a reptile head. Since reptiles and mammals have the right fit, Mr. Kim rolls up in front of the lizard folk, and at first they think he's one of them. Suddenly realizing he ain't a lizard man, they all go for him. But armed with their poison, this fierce monster takes out every single lizard man. Meanwhile, the warrior walks away thinking the slime's done for now, but it pops back up looking rough and slowly healing from the earlier damage. Desperate for some instant energy, the slime heads back into the cave, and moments later, our guy returns from a hunt. Spotting all his food gone, Kim's left flabbergasted wondering which dude swiped it. They can totally chat like humans even with that reptilian head. Since their reptile and mammal vibes mesh well, Mr. Kim steps up in front of the lizard folk who initially think he's one of them. But then, bam. They clock that he's not a lizard man and attack him, but with the poison made just for them, the beast mops the floor with all those lizard men. Meanwhile, the warrior thinks he's off the hook because the slime is totally dead, but surprise, it pops back up looking rough and seems to be slowly healing from the damage. Starving for a quick energy fix, the slime heads into the cave, and before you know it, our dude rolls back after a hunt, seeing all his food vanished. Kim is like, wait, what the heck? So we did that. Eventually, we spot this slime dude, and boom, we dive into his backstory. Turns out he used to be a human, and everyone just called him a total loser. All he did was vibe and chill, kind of like he was just coasting through life. Basically, he was a useless sack of trash. Even his parents ditched him because he got super lazy and out of shape when he hit 40. He blamed them for being terrible parents or something, but like he didn't ask to be stuck with dirt poor folks anyway. The plot thickens when he ends up in this weird situation and gets reborn as the craziest slime ever. Well, that's what he thinks. He totally believes he's the chosen one and the main character in this whole saga. Fast forward to now, our slime is in a sad mess thanks to some warrior who wrecked his vibe. He sees it as a total opportunity to level up and decides to get back at everyone by absorbing all the skills in this world. Just then, Mr. Kim pops up and the slime is hyped to see his meal right in front of him, so he jumps at him. The boy then spills all the tea about what went down in the last 2 weeks. Kicking it off with some bad news, he can no longer use the lab for his experiments, because the slime that crashed in while he was hunting for the lizard man messed up everything. But here's the good part. When that slime attacked him, it went right into his mouth, and he absorbed all those skills. According to this illustrated book, Mr. Kim has slimes change forms and level up based on what they eat regularly. At first, our guy couldn't eat minerals, but slimes aren't just about munching on live creatures. This means now that Kim, who's already a total beast, absorbed a slime he can chow down on metal and even transform into it. The next scene takes us to the land of the Great Forest Dragon, where we see the dragon soaring back to her crib. She's living the lone wolf life and has a title that the lowly creatures who worship her gave her. The lizard man prays to the dragon and calls her Scarlet Blaze, the one who lights up the whole sky. Guess what? The dragon had a baby, and she is super protective of it. Her followers shower her with treasures, and in return she blesses them with good fortune and safety. But she's been slacking on her duties since her baby was born. The dragon then heads out to check on the lizard man's turf and spots signs of a battle, making her think there might be an intruder. The dragon gets furious and decides to make everyone pay for messing with her crew. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim's busy pondering about the goo that covers the lizard man's scales, which is like disinfectant and antibiotic. Well, the mucus on both the scales and the slime is made up of the same stuff, so if he starts munching on tough metals and transforms this goo into metal slime, he'll definitely beef up. He's thinking about where to score some metal like that, and scans the area with sharp eyes, spotting the orc territory of the Great Forest, which is the baddest tribe around. Finding it tough to handle 40 strong orcs, he brainstorms a sneaky way to slip into their turf. That's when a red dragon flies overhead, catching his attention. Thanks to those lizard man memories, he knows that the dragon has a baby. With his abilities, he can switch brains with the animals he munches on and peek into their memories. But if he swaps his whole brain, he would lose his senses, so he only swaps out a piece. According to his book, dragons are super protective of their hatchlings, and our dude gets this wicked idea to mess with the dragon baby, thinking he doesn't even need to step foot in there. The mother dragon stacks up food for her little one and tells the baby dragon to chill and wait for her to get back. Confused, the baby dragon asks his mom when he can venture outside, but the dragon warns him not to even think about going out when she's not home. After that, the dragon activates this barrier magic to keep her kid safe and heads out for some reconnaissance. The scene then flips back 30 minutes before the dragon leaves. Kim's been hanging out near the dragon's spot, and surprise, surprise, he easily finds his way to the dragon's cave thanks to his lizard man memory. He tosses the dead antelope he was carrying to see if the barrier magic is active, and predictably, the antelope gets burnt and falls. Knowing the deal with the barrier cause of the lizard man vibes, he realizes that the magic doesn't affect peeps from Earth. Just as the dragon heads out, he sneaks into the cave where the baby dragon chillin' and gripes about how high up this place is. He then transforms his lower teeth into a troll, crafting a gnarly bite red scales and bits of other creatures that are enough to fool the barrier and make him look like a dragon. The baby dragon freaks out and questions the intruder in front of him, who looks super into checking out all the dragon's treasure. This wigs the little dragon out and he charges at Kim, telling him to scram. But the poor thing gets slammed by that monster and crashes down, calling for his mom. 1 week later, the mother dragon returns home all stressed out for not figuring anything out. Suddenly, she notices her kid isn't zooming toward her like he usually does and starts searching around only to find her baby's lifeless body just lying there. Totally panicking, the dragon unleashes all her recovery, healing and cure spells to make sure her baby is all right, and eventually manages to. As she comforts the baby dragon, she asks him what went down, and he just starts bawling. She peeps that her kid isn't running toward her like usual and looks around only to find her baby laying lifelessly on the floor. Freaking out, the dragon uses all her recovery healing and cure magic to make sure her baby is alright and finally gets it to work. While she asks her little dragon what went down after calming him down, the baby starts crying again, and Kim's looking over it with all this drama. After that, Edward and Kim are just shook, wondering how they ended up in this whack world. And Kim, eyeing him suspiciously, is like, "Why are you even here, bro?" Spills tea that it was some dude with his bottom teeth all jacked up who messed him up, and all the food she gathered for her baby got swiped by that intruder. The whole pop teeth vibe and burnt red skin her kid described hits her hard, making her realize those orc jerks are the culprits, since they're the only ones with that kind of look in the Great Forest. She's gotta make them pay for this, and her fury starts bubbling, which totally makes our dude smirk, cause he's been waiting for her to blow. Meanwhile, in orc territory, one of the orcs hits up his elder to spill the tea on some sketchy stuff they stumbled upon while on watch. After checking it out, the elder's like, "How the heck did this awesome relic end up in a bush? All bloody." Turns out it's the dragon's blood, which leaves him scratching his head. But before they can do anything more, the furious dragon swoops down on him, ready for payback. The dragon finds out that it's her baby's blood on that sword, which drives her completely nuts as she goes ham on everyone. Caught off guard by the sudden chaos, the orc's horn summons every orc in the forest, and it's a trap alert. We find out the brawl lasts a crazy 3 days. Even though the orcs come out on top, a ton of them bite the dust, and the ones who make it out split from the Great Forest, leaving the dragon for the monster, Kim. On another note, the baby dragon realizes his mom isn't around anymore and gnashes its teeth in rage, leaving its nest behind. Back to our main guy, he's scoping out all the stuff he gobbled up so far, like hard wolves, trolls, lizard dudes, orcs, a dragon, and a bunch of other monsters from the book, which makes him bounce from the forest, since he's got nothing keeping him here. After that, he hops into a merchant's cart who Kim told that he has memory loss from getting wrecked in the forest. That merchant seems like a chill dude and drops knowledge about herbs that make you young, rare monster goods, and secrets from ancient kingdoms. That's why everyone flocks to this forest, but most either kick the bucket or get lucky and end up like Kim. Turns out Kim learned a lot about this forest on his way to a village, picking up almost everything except for this status tab thing. They say it's basic knowledge in this world and gives you the download on your life. He tries to check it out, but for some reason it ain't working for him, which makes him wonder if it's because he's not from around here. Later, they roll into the village where the merchant drops him off and dips while he checks out the town called Santo Canargo, which looks pretty massive and a lot cleaner than he thought. While reading the posters on the walls about washing hands to dodge germs and self-care tips, he's like, whoa, this civilization is pretty advanced. Just then, he catches two peeps chatting about how this city is strangely clean. One of them spills that only the area close to the palace is this spotless because the second prince grew up here and was the first to figure out that hygiene is tied to sickness. The guy wraps it up saying the prince pulled all this off before he was even 10, making them think he's a genius and hoping to catch him at his coming-of-age party next month. Our dude who's been listening in on the whole convo is like, the whole hygiene idea popped up in the 20th century back on Earth, while this place feels like it's stuck in the medieval times, leading him to wonder if there's another human like him, with Earth memories feeling curious to meet the prince. Out of nowhere, our guy finally runs into the prince, who turns out to be Eddie Montoya, the partner who stabbed him in the back and got eaten by Kim. We find out that Eddie Montoya was his real name before his rebirth. He was a second-generation Latino born in the U.S. to immigrant parents living the high life, working as an investigator for the International Special Police Force and a secret agent for the CIA. But his world hit a dead end when he crossed paths with a nasty monster, and just like that, his first life was a wrap. What he didn't know was there's a new world waiting after death. When he opened his eyes, he was a kid again. His name was Edward, and shockingly, he was the second oldest prince of the Kingdom of Grand Canine. To his surprise, his second chance at life was a cakewalk. He somehow took charge of this place using his earth smarts, which was like god-level skills in this basic world. He introduced hygiene, science, and astronomy. And with the training he got from his elite life, he could do anything. But Edward lucked out, not being reborn as a peasant, since no one would have taken him seriously, and he was born into royalty. Plus, the eldest prince isn't set to rule. So, it's just a matter of time before Edward snags that crown. As the crowd cheers for the second oldest prince, he dreams big about becoming the king of this hood. The scene then shifts to the Lord of Santo Cargo's crib, where Prince Edward, lying in bed, is all like man today was exhausting, thinking that putting on fake smiles is tougher than he thought. Out of nowhere, he hears a creak from the window and spots a giant lizard crashing into his room. Freaking out, Edward's like, "Who the heck are you?" and pulls out his sword. He quickly figures out it's a lizard dude and is totally shocked, wondering how a lizard man managed to sneak into his pad and bust through the barrier spell. Just then, the lizard man greets the prince and switches back to his true form. Asking if he remembers him, Edward goes into full panic mode as he recalls that he's a __. Cheers for the second oldest prince dreaming of being the king one day. The scene switches to this Lord of Santo Cargo's manor, where Prince Edward is flopped on his bed, whining about a tough day and thinking that fake smiles are harder than he thought. Out of nowhere, he hears a creak from the window and sees this giant lizard pushing its way into his room. Total freakout mode. Edward is like, "Who the hell are you?" and pulls his sword. He quickly realizes it's a lizard man and freaks out even more, wondering how a lizard dude managed to slide into his space and break the barrier spell. Just then, the lizard man greets the prince and shifts back to his original form, asking if Edward remembers him. The prince is straight up panicking as he recalls that he's a monster pet shop. Totally scared out of his wits, the poor guy can't believe his eyes, thinking it must be a nightmare, and he just flops to the floor fainting. While Kim thinks this is more dramatic than he expected, someone knocks on the door calling for His Highness Edward. When the servant pops in and spots him snoozing, he eyeballs the big bear stuffed animal. But then the servant whips out a knife to off the prince, who's just out cold. And just as he's about to stab him, someone grabs his hand. He looks back and sees it's the big bear. Not a stuffed animal, but a serious monster. Totally startled, the dude's scared out of his mind, and Kim roars at him saying dude can just die instead, as that loud roar echoes through the manor. The other guards rush to the prince's room. Our guy thinks it's getting crazy since more guards rush in and see the giant bear, and they turn out to be assassins. They decide to go with Plan B and take out both the prince and the monster. Meanwhile, the guy from earlier gets slammed into the wall. Kim figures he can handle these dudes easy peasy. But things are gonna get messy if they call in more guards. Thinking it's time to bounce, the bear grabs the prince and jumps out the window. As the poor prince hits the ground, Kim, who's not about that inhuman vibe, saves him and decides to let him live for now, taking off in a hurry with Edward. Meanwhile, someone in the manor is writing a letter and is interrupted by the guards who tell him the prince got nabbed by the monster. Slamming his hand down on the table, this dude is in disbelief and wonders how someone can just swipe a prince and stew. Carnago. Then he orders his guards to rally all the troops and rescue the prince at any cost. After that, Kim, who's been on the run with the prince, is being chased by a crowd of people all the way out of the city. Sitting on a hill, Edward finally wakes up, and he's again freaked out by the sight of Kim, realizing it wasn't just a dream. The poor dude passes out again, and Kim is just over this dramatic situation. After that, Edward and Kim seem confused as they wonder how they even ended up in this crazy world, while Kim suspiciously asks him why he's here. The 5 most powerful fams on the continent. As long as the royal squad's in charge, the House of Baron gonna thrive. But as soon as the royal fam takes a dive, the House of Carargo is gonna nosedive too. A wave of dread hits Edward as he realizes that this dude is planning to off him again once he figures out his resurrection secret. But our guy guarantees he's not about to pull the trigger on him. Edward straight up asks if that's a promise, and Kim's all like, nah, I can't promise anything. Kim reminds him he already paid the price for betraying him. Chills run down his spine. Eddie remembers his gnarly death and thinks Kim's gonna go after the other traitors, but he makes it clear he's not gonna help. Then Mr. Kim mentions it's kinda unfair. He only took out Eddie and his crew, while the boss and the rest of the crew are still alive. Like a sly fox, he plays Eddie by saying that since they're both gone, those other peeps must be taking the glory. Hitting the bullseye, Kim points out that everyone else is living large except for Eddie. That hits hard. It really hits Eddie as he thinks about how he busted his butt to catch Mr. Pet Shop, yet he's the only one stuck in this savage world. Time to ditch his old self as Eddie Monontoya. He reminds himself that he's now Prince Edward Grand Katime of the Elmwood continent and agrees to team up with Kim. When they shake hands, Edward, who's also a total smartass, figures out Kim's plan. He thinks Kim's goal is to get back to Earth and take out the traitors. So if they can find a way to send him back, Kim will handle those jerks for him, and this world will be chill. While the prince lets Kim play the sidekick in this grand scheme, Eddie realizes having Edward around is a major win. I mean, he's a prince, and the info will be way better. Plus, he's also going to search for a way back to Earth. Looks like these guys are about to use each other big time. After that, Kim spills the tea about his assassination plot, and the prince guesses it's the old dude behind it. As our boy thinks he's handling it better than expected, Edward steps up and says he's used to this. The prince then stands up and lets Kim know that they've got a coming-of-age ceremony to hit up. His royal status is key if Kim wants his help. Then we jump back 300 years to the OG king Edward the Great, who crashed at an inn on the outskirts of Carargo during a hunting trip. Turns out the king was super impressed with the innkeeper and hooked him up with the title of Baron. This is how the Santo Cargo Hotel kicked off and set the stage for the power move of the House of Baron Cargo. With the royal fam backing them, the House of Baron Cargo became one of the top 5 families on the continent. As long as the royal line was strong, the House of Baron was golden. But the day the royal fam crashed, the Carargo house was doomed too. Later, one of the hitmen plots to find the prince and take him out. Right then, one of the guards tells the old guy that they've spotted the prince, and he tells the guard to bring him back to the manor. The boy who's plotting to take out the prince looks like he's already scared silly when the guard spills the tea that the prince has come to them himself. Seeing the prince chilling outside the gate with Kim, the old man asks if he's good, saying they'll rescue him in no time. But the prince throws it back and tells him to back off. Later, one of the assassins is plotting to track down the prince and take him out. Just then, one of the guards spills the tea to the old dude that they found the prince, and he tells the guard to hightail it back to the manor. Meanwhile, the boy who was scheming to take out the prince is already freaking out, and the guard reveals the prince just rolled up on them himself. Spotting the prince chilling outside the gate with Kim, the old man's like, "Your Highness, you good? We're gonna rescue you real quick." But the prince is all, "Nah, back off." Chomping on werewolves should boost his compatibility with mammals too. He's hyped to see the results as he munches on the wolves. Then the prince strolls over to Kim and asks if he's down to chow on these wolves. So the squad rolls up and spills the tea that he got hit by a sneaky assassin last night. He's like, "I totally dodged a bullet thanks to my secret knight, bro, Mr. Kim." But plot twist. They had to bounce because they were totally outmatched by the attackers, and the old dude starts freaking out asking if he's for real. But the assassin's like, "Don't be dumb, bro." The kidnapper straight up threatened the prince. Edward hears this and is all, "Are you saying I made this all up?" He shouts out his name like a boss. It's Edward Grand Contan, the heir to the legendary Edward the Great. Reminding everyone who he is, the prince makes it crystal clear that he's not sweating some lame threat, because honestly, thinking he wouldn't stand up for himself is like pure treason. The old dude is totally shook by the prince's vibe. He's like, "That knight's armor is kind of whack, but those red dragon scales underneath, definitely not your run-of-the-mill kidnapper." Then the prince is like, "Yo, troops, cuff this old man and his crew." While they're getting tied up, Edward rolls up to one of the assassins and spills some serious tea that the House of Cargo, one of the top 5 families in the kingdom, knows all the juicy secrets that everyone else is clueless about. He grabs his shoulder and says, "One of those secrets, torture." The prince gives the assassin a sly grin, promising him he won't die chill. The assassin's freaking out, thinking how his big plan went south. Just then, the prince's secret knight strides in, and the assassin starts pointing fingers like, "What's your deal?" That's when Kim takes off his armor, showing his face. The assassin recognizes him as the same bear from before, and Kim winks at him while the guards haul him away, calling him a monster. The kid then lets us in on a secret that he snagged some old school armor from a village nearby and found a log. He slathered the armor in some gooey slime and turned it into mystium. He even snacked in the dragon's nest. Turns out that slime was more handy than he thought, because that's how he punked the Baron into thinking he's a secret knight. The Baron yells that the traitors spilled the beans under torture, calling themselves the Messengers of Death. Thinking these fools were pretending to be the prince's crew, the Baron hits up Sir Kim asking if he knows anything about those guys. While Kim's like, "Let me spill the tea on what me and Edward chatted about and clear things up," he tells the Baron the scoop he heard last night turns out the second Queen Everos didn't just get sick. She got poisoned. Hearing this, the Baron loses it, fuming and ready to make whoever killed the queen pay. But Edward slides behind him in a heartbeat, putting a hand on his shoulder saying, "Don't sleep on them. They're the kind that take out the big dogs." The old dude is straight up terrified, feeling Edward's weird strength. Kim works his magic convincing the Baron to let him handle this since the prince found a clue, and it'll be wrapped up soon. As Kim's about to dip, the old man begs him to keep the prince safe, and the knight assures him he can count on him, betting he'll keep the prince alive until all this drama's sorted. Later, Kim and Eddie are cruising in a carriage, and our boy's like, "So what's the deal with the messenger of death you found out about?" The prince spills that it was a total lie. He doesn't need clues because he already knows who they are, adding, "They're headed straight to where it's at." Kim's super curious. Edward says it's going to be epic, and he's going to meet the ringleader when they hit the capital. With that, he asks Kim about that thing he wanted to ask him earlier. It turns out Kim's all puzzled about the status tab and asks the prince about it, while Edward thinks it's cause he's not from around here. He finds it weird because he's got his own status tab. The prince breaks it down that the status tab isn't just for peeps, but every living thing on this continent has one. And with his identity skill, he can check out other folks' status tabs. Edward chimes in that he's got that skill too, and he peeked at Kim's status tab when he used it on him earlier. The prince tries to use his identity skill again, but can't see Kim's status tab. After thinking about it, he tells Kim to change into some other animal cause he wants to check something out. Our dude turns into a grizzly bear, but the prince cuts him off, telling him to switch to a creature from this world. As soon as Kim morphs into an orc, Edward checks out his status tab and figures that it doesn't work on Kim since he's from Earth. But when he turns into something that belongs here, it totally works. Meanwhile, they're testing all these monsters like Lizard Man's claws, trolls, skin killer bites, scales, and tough wolf fangs, repeating the whole deal until the status tab stops changing while the prince makes a crazy face, seeing that our guy really went to town on that feast. A few days later, they finally roll up at their spot, and the prince asks if he's ready to throw down since they're about to meet the head honcho of the assassins, warning him not to be too shook. When they get to the palace entrance, the gates swing open and they see the boss of the assassins, the king himself, which leaves Kim completely blown away. As the prince gives his dad a nod, the king seems to know what's been going down with the prince, and when Kim morphs into that orc, Edward checks his status tab and wraps it up that the status tab doesn't work on him since he's from Earth. But when he switches it up to a local creature, it totally works. Meanwhile, they test out all the monsters like Lizard Man's claws, Troll's skin killer bites, scales, and some tough wolf fangs, repeating the action until the status tab stops changing, while the prince makes a weird face, seeing that our boy had an epic feast there. After a couple of days, they hit their destination, and the prince checks if our guy is ready to brawl since they're meeting the big cheese of the assassins, making sure he's not going to get too freaked out. When they arrive at the palace gates, they see the leader of the assassins, the king himself, which totally floors Kim. As the prince gives his dad a greeting, the king seems to already be in the loop about what's been happening with the prince and the king himself, which leaves Kim with no choice but to be shocked. As the prince greets his father, the king seems to know what happened to the prince and is stoked to see him back in one piece. But the king's just lost in thought about this little rat who pulled off the ultimate escape. Edward gives his pops the credit, saying it's all thanks to the attendants he hooked up with him. Mr. Kim's thinking those attendants are more like hitmen, and he can feel the tension between the king and prince rising like crazy. The king then shouts for Sir Kim and says he's never had him in his title, the secret guardian knight. With the stakes getting higher, Kim senses the king's trying to throw him off his game, but our dude just plays it cool, and the king's kinda impressed by his vibe, saying this dude's got the guts of a knight. Then he turns to Edward, asking him to hand over the knight, but Edward's like, nah, I gotta decline, bro, with 2 solid reasons. The prince goes on to say one reason is that Sir Kim ain't some gift to throw around and that he's his friend, not a piece of property. Then he spills the tea that he's tight with Sir Kim. And even though he's the second oldest prince without an older bro, they've vowed to be brothers. With a smirk, Edward gives Kim a friendly tap on the shoulder and they both nail that brotherly act. But then, the king pounds his hands on the throne fury bursting out of him as he watches the brotherhood unfold and yells for them to get out of his sight. After that, Prince Edward's chilling with a glass of wine thanking his bro Kim. A bit tipsy, he's cracking up over how he scared the old man after telling him about some mysterious knight from who knows where, strutting into the palace. He thanks Kim for finally putting the old dude in his place and gives him this epic enchanted armor. Our boy realizes he's never really gotten one up on the old man before, and Edward agrees, dropping the bomb that his dad's been training orphans nationwide since they hit the age of 10. After schooling them on basic servant stuff to gather intel and do some dirty work, he plants these trained orphans into royal households to knock out anyone in the way. He's like, the old man snagged the throne with these moves even when he was just 4th in line. Mad Edward shatters his wine glass, claiming the old man stole his ideas first, and calls him a son of a __. Then the wicked prince feels all pumped after messing with the king and thinks that behind that chill facade the old man's about to __ his pants. Meanwhile, he feels on top of the world for pulling one over on his dad. Suddenly, someone bursts in. It's his sister throwing shade at him for being rude to their dad and rushing straight at Edward. But Sir Kim blocks her path, telling her to hold up. The princess goes off on him, but Kim, super serious, breaks it down that she's trespassing in the prince's private quarters without knocking. When she tries to sass him back, Kim whips out his sword and puts it right at her neck, saying he won't ask again. Shaking with fear, the princess trips and falls, and that's when Edward rushes to his sister, asking if she's okay. Edward turns into the sweetest dude ever comforting his sister, Eleanor, who's tearing up. He walks her back to her room and tells her they'll chat later. As soon as he shuts the door, he mutters that she's a lousy wench. After that, Kim asks if she's his little sister, and that's when Edward spills that his sister was blessed with powers from the goddess, saying she'll be the first to go when he takes the throne. Turns out Eleanor Grand Conte is the youngest of the 3 surviving kids of the reigning king, Edward IV. The princess got the goddess's blessing to go wherever she wants. But here's the kicker. Eleanor's totally crushing on Edward, who's actually the reincarnation of Eddie Montoya, her half-bro. Edward's like, what the hell, that's wild. And when our dude curiously asks if he's into the princess back, Edward, losing his chill, tells him to drop that sick joke. The prince then reminds him about Queen Evros, the second queen who got poisoned by their sister's mom, the first queen who threw a deadly party for her. Plot twist. The second queen was Edward's legit mom. The prince reveals that the first queen had Eleanor after taking out his mother and becoming the king's new favorite. Upon hearing this, Kim's like, so your sister basically came from your mom's death, which is all kinds of messed up. Our boy then wonders why he's going against the king if he didn't off his mom, and Edward explains it's about the firstborn son, but Edward stops and makes it clear he only talks about the firstborn if he's here or if he gives him the green light. While Kim's all curious about why he's been holding on to their secrets for so long, the prince says he's got no choice because he swore an oath to the goddess. Done with the chit-chat, Edward fixes his hair and tells his bro it's time to roll. As they walk, the knight asks him if he doesn't need a plan for the assassins. The prince lets out that with his coming-of-age ceremony, he's shown he's ready to take the crown, which means the king can't just kick him to the curb now. First, he wants to deal with the old geezers loyal to the king to win over the prime minister, the dude running the kingdom's money. Just as he's plotting, Edward bumps into someone and freaks out, yelling for them to get out of the prince's way. But it turns out it's none other than his brother. Just as he's making plans, Edward runs into someone and freaks out, yelling for daring to stand in the prince's way. But it turns out to be none other than his bro. The next scene throws us right into the king's headspace, and dude, he's all about thinking on Edward and his bro. He's got some serious throwbacks on the wild plan he schemed up. The king took out all his brothers one by one, clearing the way for his throne. To him, those so-called brothers, just obstacles ready to be tossed aside. Totally mad, he's got beef with little rat Edward, who's got a sworn brother and thinks he's just here to roast him. The old dude's plan to snag the crown worked like a charm. But yo, he might be setting a wicked bad example. He wants to whip up a new game plan and can't stop thinking about his kids who made the cut and were schooled for their roles. His oldest son is all about being righteous and wise perfect to roll out the kingdom right. Then there's his second eldest, who's just a mini version of him ready to wipe out anything blocking his big bro's reign. And last but not least, his daughter, smart and stunning, destined for some arranged marriage. Too bad his son's skills were off the charts for what he needed. His son Edward was way too sly for his own good and couldn't stand his own peeps, while the eldest was too goody two-shoes picked by the goddess to be her boss. Just like that, the firstborn of the Grand Canyon royal fam was out, and the only ones left were his sneaky, crafty son and a capable daughter. The king is so mad he'd rather see his daughter on the throne than that slippery snake Edward, deciding right then and there he can never be king. The scene flips to Edward, who hops up and gives a bow to the warrior. The warrior tells his bro to hit up the audience room because they've got some urgent stuff to hash out, and Kim can't believe that this super virtuous warrior is the chosen one by the goddess herself. Our dude realizes that the warrior is the kingdom's firstborn and figures he must be super powerful to have the goddess on his side, praying that he better not step in his way. When they hit the audience chamber, the king and Edward are not stoked to see each other again. The old dude opens his arms for the warrior, expecting him to be the king. The warrior thanks the old man for the warm welcome and gets straight to it, spilling that the goddess hooked him up with the power of holy light. Everyone's like, whoa, while the warrior plans to bounce on an adventure in a week once he hears back from the church and is asking the kingdom for backup with its army. Smirking, the king is all about it, saying it's their duty. But Edward's not feeling this vibe at all. He slams his hand in anger as the old man's got him riled up, murmuring that the demon king totally messed with his plans. Kim wants to know what's up. That's when the prince realizes he's clueless about how things roll around here and spills that demons have always been hostile to humans and their leader is the demon king. Thanks to mediation with the goddess, the two races gotta keep a balance, even if they're always at each other's throats. Plus, if things get too lopsided, the goddess creates a warrior on the other side. If balance isn't kept despite the warrior's hustle, she amps them up with holy light. In short, the power of holy light gives the warrior the right to take out the other side's king. At the same time, the demon king also expects some serious respect for his title. But the warrior with the holy light can take down the demon king without worrying about getting clapped back. After this long tale, our dude still doesn't get the whole thing. Then Edward clears it up that the holy light power given to the warrior is a major threat to humanity. As someone in the royal fam about to snag the throne, it's his job to go hard in the war. Clever as he is, Edward already knows the old man's going to be on the front lines. Even if he manages to survive, he's totally going to scheme to shove him out of the kingdom. The next day, the king tells Prince Edward to team up with the warrior to take down the demon king. To save face, the prince bows, boasting he'll gladly lay down his life for the divine warrior. Hearing this, the crowd is blown away by the prince's fake honor and loyalty, while the king is grinning like a sly fox. Later, Eleanor sees her half-bro Edward bailing from the palace and tears up for him. Meanwhile, Edward drops the whole nice guy act and tells his brother Kim to skedaddle from this dump, leaving the palace. Kim can't help but think the prince handled that better than he expected. There's really not much he could do anyway. Edward, looking annoyed, says he just needs to take out the demon king and off that old bastard, aka his father. He then asks Kim what's going down outside, and Kim spills they're up to something as they get closer to the carriage. Knowing the old dude wouldn't let him off easy, the prince asks where it's at, and Kim warns that someone's creeping up from behind. He's thinking about trying to break the protective barrier, asking Edward if he should stop him. The prince says, nah, let them try it. Moments later, one of the guards busts through the barrier, and with Phase 1 pulling it off, they're diving into Phase 2. Two guards on either side of the carriage get ready to unleash a fireball attack while the drivers signal to ditch the carriage. As a couple of guards tumble off, the carriage suddenly goes boom and slows down. The prince isn't having any of it and lets them try. A sec later, one of the guards breaks through the protective barrier, and with Phase 1 a go, they jump into Phase 2. Two guards on either side of the carriage are prepped for a fireball attack while the driver gets the green light to bail out. As two guards tumble off, the carriage suddenly crashes and slows down. Aiming that fireball at the carriage, one of them totally whiffs and hits the other guard instead. Inside the carriage, Kim's looking all monstrous and peeks out like a total creep. Edward gets saved by Kim, who's now this huge beast, and the prince is like, whoa, every single time he sees him. Our dude makes a dope entrance and tells him the monster's got his back now, so he better get used to it. As they keep moving the knights in their way, freak out when they spot the monster. The monster lets out a gnarly roar, and it sends the horses into crazy mode. While one knight tries to cast a spell on the horses, the others are like, we gotta finish the mission first, and we'll deal with the horses later. As they charge at the beast to their shock, the monster breathes fire and straight up cooks the knights. Spitting flames, Kim is low-key, amazed by the firepower, and feels like an absolute boss for using it against those orcs instead of going toe-to-toe with the dragon. Turns out he just toasted the knights general, which just makes them even angrier. One of them nails his sword into the monster's arm, but it don't even faze him. The dragon monster then snatches a horse by the tail and hurls it away, watching the knights get wrecked. They bounce out of there pronto and plan to alert everyone ASAP. As they scramble away, the knight vows to come back for their general's body, but then they get hit by a quantum ray from behind, and it's Edward. Kim asks if that's magic, and the prince is like, nah, just light magic for long-range shots, letting Kai know he's naturally gifted with light powers. With a hint of sarcasm, our dude can't help but chuckle at Edward's light magic, finding it kinda ironic since he's been lurking in the shadows. The scene shifts to the village where our boy says he and the prince have been riding for 2 days and finally roll up to the village to meet the warrior's crew. Meanwhile, the prince is enjoying his munchies. Kim gripes that all this chaos could have been skipped if he had left the palace with the warrior, but Edward's like if he was the warrior, they wouldn't have a shot at taking him down, all confident that the old dude set this up on purpose. In the meantime, the prince asks brother Kim if he's got any questions, and it looks like our guy is deep in thought. He wonders how humans can channel holy light power, making the fight feel totally unfair, saying it'd be a total sin for demons to mess with the divine warrior. Edward briefly states it's cool to off the warrior blessed with holy light since the goddess is fair and everyone gets the same perks from the power. He adds that the goddess won't smite the demon king if he takes out the warrior. But like that's never happened in history. If a demon manages to din someone from humanity, that means humanity's reign is toast since the top dogs would win. Hearing this, Kim throws on a wicked smirk and thinks survival of the fittest, just like how I roll most of the time. Edward's curious why he's grinning, saying it has nothing to do with him, and warns Kim to stay out of his plans, calling him a brat. But since they're sworn bros, our dude assures him they still got a deal. The prince then lets out a sigh of relief, appreciating him for being a monster with some morals, while Kim asks if he knows any other monsters. The prince mentions there's a monster called a saintess, who's a real handful. Just then, someone pops up from behind, asking Edward to spill the tea. Turns out it's the saints. Freaking out, the prince backtracks, saying she must have heard him wrong. Calling her a monster, the saints don't look too happy. To make things worse, the prince calls her delusional and says it must be exhausting to take all those personal jabs and think they apply to the whole squad. Not holding back, the saint snaps back, saying the prince isn't as flawless as he thinks, asking Edward to swing by the temple one day so they can put him in his place. When the prince tells her to remember her place under his foot, he clearly crosses a line, causing the saints to get super mad as she makes the ground tremble. While Edward's freaking out, the saints decide to take this outside and warn the prince to get his funeral arrangements in order. As they keep arguing, the locals start gossiping about the prince and the saints throwing down in the streets, when out of nowhere, Kim yells for them to shut it. He then tosses some gold at them to zip their lips, ordering them to pretend they didn't see or hear anything. After that, the townsfolk get busy snatching up the gold, while Kim reminds the prince that cleaning up his mess ain't part of the deal. So it's revealed that Saint Tess is a warrior made by humans. Just like how the goddess whips up a warrior, the temple uses blessings and spells to craft a saintess. Unlike a goddess who can whip out a warrior in no time, it takes 10 long years for the temple to create one single saint. Plus, the price is super steep, so they can only make one. But once it's all done, the saint is practically unstoppable. Since her bones are made of blessed magical metals, her muscle strength is off the charts, and she's got superhuman skills. And the scene then flips to Edward's flashback when he first spotted Saint Tess at 6 years old and saw the potential in her. He had planned to make her his royal guard, but the temple snatched her away from him. But the saint is straight up unstoppable with bones made of blessed magical metals, muscles cranked to the max, and superhuman strength. We flash back to when Edward first laid eyes on Saint Tess at 6 years old and saw the potential in her. He wanted to make her his royal guard, but the temple snatched her away. Flashing back, the prince wonders if he can take her in a fight. Kim steps outside and catches the prince throwing down with the saints. Both of them are totally riled up, and he tells them to chill since the warrior's on the way. The saints bounce out, saying she's got to get ready anyway, while Edward still wants another shot at her. Just then, her dude calls him out and grabs the prince by the neck, reminding him he's supposed to be his knight, not his babysitter, giving him a seriously cold stare through his armor. Kim warns him not to push it with his BS. He then lets go of the poor prince, who starts coughing, and heads out. Later, the warrior rolls in, and Kim can't help but think it's wild that he walked here. Didn't swoop in from above, and looks like just any other knight. Meanwhile, the saint gives him a wave, and the warrior's stoked to see Edward, looking like he made it without too many hiccups. The prince tells him the journey wasn't too crazy, except for a couple of minor bumps, and the warrior introduces himself to the secret guardian knight Kim. They shake hands, but Edward looks totally annoyed, and our guy thinks he's acting like a total baby, still sulking about what happened earlier. After that, the warrior drops the news that nothing's changed. The goddess hasn't taken the holy light power yet. He admits that the demon king's going to be way more powerful than the last ones, saying there's no guarantee they'll make it out alive on this path. The warrior then asks if they're still down to follow him, and they all agree, including Sir Kim since he's the prince's knight. Smacking his sword on the ground, the warrior announces they're forming an order to take down the demon king, when suddenly, someone barges in. It's a demon snickering like he's been waiting for this moment. Pretty soon, the warrior spots him. The demon's Francis Defray, the big shot of arrogance among the 7 deadly generals. This weird-looking demon sees the humans thinking they can declare war on demon territory, so he's got no choice but to throw down. The demon rings this massive bell, causing chaos among the townsfolk. Annoyed by the noise, the warrior tells the demon to stop hurting innocent people. But Francis makes it clear that this village is his turf, and there ain't no civilians left, just servants loyal to the Demon King. Out of nowhere, a bunch of wolf demons show up, ordered to take out the humans. It's then revealed that werewolves are the bottom-tier demons who pump up their numbers by infecting humans, and the ones who turn can't go back to being human. Those werewolves are stuck being puppets for the high-class demons until they're all used up. Meanwhile, Francis thinks these lowly werewolves aren't going to take down the order and gets back to his real mission. He then watches Prince Edward go ham on a wolf with his light magic and notices he's got evasive moves like he's in a circus. Moving on to the Saintess, who's got all kinds of spells down and fights like a total beast. While the demon peeps the warrior's style, which is super textbook, a kid that seems to be infected by the wolves jumps him and the warrior stops for a sec. As he takes out the wolf, Francis is taking mental notes and decides to bounce. But then he realizes one of them is MIA, and that's when our guy sneaks up behind him. Finally sensing someone, a wave of fear hits Francis, who can't believe what just went down. He wonders how this dude managed to creep up on him and thinks it's impossible since he should have felt it. Thinking it's ridiculous, he reminds himself he's the general of arrogance among the 7 deadly generals. In that moment, Kim stabs him with the sword, taking out Francis. The scene then cuts to the other demon generals who just got the scoop about Francis biting the dust. They start clowning him for being so cocky, dubbing him General Reckless. One of the other demons guesses that his death wasn't a total waste, because now they know humans can handle taking out one of the generals, but then it's kind of a joke since the demon concludes Francis was the weakest of the bunch. Another demon chimes in saying, even the warrior is tied down by a goddess, confirming that human doom is on the horizon. This demon is sure that humans can't touch them because they've gone past the limits set by the goddess. It sounds like the battle is wrapping up, leading to the execution of Francis, one of the 7th demon generals of the Demon King. While Kim tells the warrior about this and the werewolves taken care of, the prince uses his recovery magic to scrutinize the demon's face up close, wondering if he's one of the 7th generals in charge of intel, which means he's got some serious clout. He inspects why Francis would roll with such weak werewolves and why he was so defenseless, but he's just relieved they managed to take this demon out. Edward starts getting suspicious, thinking the real enemy might be hiding. Meanwhile, Kim's wondering if those werewolves would do him any favors. He then remembers that smashing on the lizard men bumped his compatibility with reptiles. Just like that, chowing down on werewolves should boost his compatibility with mammals too. He starts munching on the wolves, hyped to see what happens. The prince then strolls over to Kim and asks if he's really going to eat those wolves. Meanwhile, Kim's wondering if the werewolves are going to do him any favors. He remembers that when he chowed down on the lizard folks, his reptile game shot up. If he digs into the wolves, his mammal compatibility might rise too. So he bites into the wolves, stoked to see what'll happen. The prince strolls up to Kim and asks if he's going to munch on those wolves. Chowing down on some werewolves should totally up his game with the mammals, right? He digs into those wolves super hyped to see what happens. Then the prince strolls over to Kim and asks if he's planning to snack on those wolves. He starts freaking out, reminding him that there are other peeps around. They both then switch gears to check out the dead demon chilling in front of them. The prince tells Kim that this demon was just a toy for the Demon King, probably tossed away, because he was old news. While he's shooting the breeze with Kim about it, our dude drops that intel is a big deal in all situations. So if the Demon King really did ditch the general in charge of the info, then he thinks the demon society is totally different from what the humans knew before. The prince nods along, but finds it hard to believe the Demon King just booted his intel guy without a serious shakeup in the demon world. This makes him more curious about what went down in the Demon Kingdom. That's when our dude figures there might be a third one that popped up from Earth just like them. This blows the prince's mind as he tries to wrap his head around it. Quitting the drama, Eddie ensures the warrior and Saintess are busy with the bodies, then asks Kim to hear him out closely. Grinning, he spills his wicked plan to take out the warrior and the Saintess, if there really is a third one in the Demon Kingdom. After that, they dig a massive hole to bury the werewolves and toss mud on top as their graves get covered up. The Saintess says a prayer for the deceased, and meanwhile the carriages roll in. The Saint then turns to the warrior, asking who's going to handle the horse, since Kim only drives stuff with engines. The warrior's sacred code says he can't drive, and the Saintess doesn't have a clue how to handle a carriage, so the prince ends up taking the reins. As Prince Edward drives, he likens it to a dragon quest, and Kim is all like, what's that? They start bickering a bit, throwing shade at each other. Our dude thinks the prince is trying to say something because he's spitting words in Russian telling him to get to the point. The blonde-haired dude spills that he knows a way to take out the warrior, which makes our boy wonder if the warrior can actually be killed. He's faced all kinds of creatures, and that warrior seems nearly invincible, like he's untouchable. He felt that when he met the warrior back in the village, the guy took out most of the werewolves using just his sword, not even breaking a sweat with his skills. Kim thinks his crazy abilities make him a tough cookie. But since our guy has a whole bag of specialized skills, he might stand a chance against him. That's when Eddie drops that being chosen as a warrior means you gotta be righteous just and super good-hearted. Still, if he's not hitting those marks, the warrior gets punished and is weak enough for Kim to take him on. Our dude asks if the prince has a plan, but he's like, nah, we don't need a plan, just vibes, man. Out of nowhere, a saint interrupts asking the prince what's the convo with Kim all about. The prince gets heated and throws insults at the saint. This pushes our dude over the edge, so he swaps spots with the saint. While in the carriage with the warrior, he asks Kim how he ended up as the prince's guardian knight, and it makes our guy wonder why he cares. The warrior spills some tea, revealing that the prince is his little brother, after he says that a sharp pain hits him for breaking the sacred code that says warriors can't have favorites. Picking up on Edward's scheme, our dude tells him he could have skipped the pain if he hadn't asked. The blonde-haired guy just smirks, saying that question was worth every ounce of pain. Our boy finds it wild how the older bro cares about his little bro while Edward's plotting to take him out. Excited to see how this plays out, Kim shares he's under a contract to protect Edward, and in exchange, the prince will help him get his wish. As they chat, the warrior suggests, if that's the case, his goal must be to snag the reward for taking out the Demon King. He realizes that the wish he mentioned isn't a walk in the park. Hearing this, our dude seems clueless about the reward the warrior is talking about and wants to know more. Turns out the fortress city is way out on the edge of the Grand Continent Kingdom, with the Demon Kingdom chilling just 12 miles away from it. They decide to crash at a tavern for the night, while the warrior heads out to lend a hand to those in need. Meanwhile, the saintess bounces to tell the church she's safe, asking Kim to keep an eye on the prince so he doesn't stir up any trouble. This ticks off the blonde-haired dude, and he tells her to kick rocks. Once they're gone, Kim fills his buddy in on some new info he has about the reward for taking out the demon, and the prince is totally hyped to hear it. Our boy throws it down, narrating how the goddess gave the warrior the power of holy light as a divine chance to take down the Demon King. When the job's done, the goddess will hook everyone who helped out with a reward. The blonde-haired dude thinks it sounds sketchy, but our guy assures him it's the real deal. After hearing this awesome news, the prince starts guzzling down beer and says it's on him, while Kim orders one for himself too. The prince definitely drinks way too much beer because he's not handling it well. The fortress city is chilling out on the edge of the Grand Continent Kingdom, and the Demon Kingdom is just 12 miles from it. They decide to crash at a tavern for the night. The warrior takes off to help out folks, and the saintess heads out to let the church know she made it safe, asking Kim to keep an eye on the prince so he doesn't cause any issues. This gets the blonde-haired guy riled up, and he tells her to shove it. After they bounce, Kim shares the new scoop he has on the reward for taking out the demon, and the prince is pumped to hear it. The boy spills that the goddess gave the warrior the power of holy light as the ultimate chance to slay the Demon King. When that task is complete, the goddess will drop a reward for everyone who played a part in it. The blonde-haired boy thinks it's too good to be true, but our guy reassures him that it's legit. Upon hearing this epic news, the prince goes hard on the beer and declares it's on him, while Kim also gets a beer for himself. The prince seems to be sinking too deep into his beer stack, clearly not handling it well. Dude's feeling all sorts of sick, and his partner's just like, yuck. Just like the prince, everyone at the tavern is feeling super dizzy, and then things get wild as Edward's veins start to bulge out. Meanwhile, the warrior's busy being a total hero hauling a wooden barrel while this middle-aged guy is all, thanks man, you're just as rad as they say. But then the dude starts calling him a spineless son of a ... and the warrior's like, wait, who are you? Pulls out his sword and demands to know who he's dealing with. The guy's all chill saying not to sweat it because they already know everything about him. The warrior's like, who the heck is they? And turns around to see civilians approaching him like they're under some spell. Turns out it's one of the 7 deadly demon generals, Ferris Glutarod. He's got the civilians totally under his thumb, explaining he messed with their water supply using some crazy parasite eggs. So once they munch on those, the parasites grow inside and hijack their minds. Sucks for those poor folks, they have to follow every order from the demon. Basically, these peeps are innocent bystanders forced to obey, but the warrior's got to take them out to confront the demon. It's like the demon's trying to make him break his sacred code. He challenges the warrior about how far he'll bend that rule that says he can't harm innocents. Hearing this just makes the warrior even more mad since the demon knows his weaknesses. He's thinking of a plan to get on the roof for a better view of the demon, but the demon's already 2 steps ahead when he sees his buddies up there totally controlled by the parasite. The prince tells him his move was totally obvious, showing off by stretching his arm in front of Sir Kim, who just snaps it like a twig. The warrior's stunned by Kim's brutality against the prince he swore to protect. And it gets worse when Kim breaks Edward's neck and chokes out the saints, making them pass out. Even the demon's like, whoa, chill out, trying to stop him while our boy grabs 2 civilians and jumps from the roof. He's all, this stops them from killing themselves and I'll handle the demon jerk. Then one of the controlled civilians starts to speak, saying Kim's lucky to avoid the parasites, but he gets cut off when Kim takes him out. The warrior's freaking out, reminding Kim these are innocent people. The demon is shook since he never thought a knight would straight up kill his own people without a second guess. One of the civilians agrees with the warrior, hoping they won't kick the bucket, and Kim's stoked they won't remember a thing about what he's about to do. Without warning, the heartless beast charges at the civilians, turning his hands into troll muscles and taking out a bunch of innocent folks in seconds. While the demons __. He tells Kim to stop, all worried about him being a knight and not killing civilians, but Kim's like, "Get off your high horse. You shouldn't have controlled them in the first place." Terrified now, the parasite demon surrenders, saying he'll free the civilians and bounce back to the demon kingdom. As Kim goes on to take out more innocent civilians, the demon's yelling confused if he's even listening. Turns out our smart main character was just clearing his way because too many people were in his way. Finally, he spots the demon chilling on top of a wall. The demon sees him and makes a break for it, totally ditching the warrior and everything else. But our guy catches him just in time, slamming him into a wall. The demon's freaked out, telling Kim to back off, but our guy just smirks, saying he's never seen a creature like him before, and he has no skills to match the demons. He's like, "Do me a solid," with a sinister grin. Then he sticks out his tongue, ready to chow down on him. The demon sees his life flashing before his eyes. Realizing he's never met anything like this before, he poisoned the water with parasite eggs. And nobody can survive without water, no matter how hard they fight. He's got mind control over their friends. His plan was flawless from where he stood. But this knight, who's busy hurting his buddies and going on a rampage, taking out his own kind, like it's nothing now, that's unexpected. But with the situation being what it is, the demon figures he's got nothing to lose and thinks Kim won't survive his powers since he's in total control. Just like that, he gets gobbled up by the knight. We find out the demon throws himself onto Kim's face and latches on. Kim swallows the demon whole, burping after did it just off itself. He's munched on tons of parasites on Earth, but none gave him skills except the ones that mess with bugs and fish. But this demon has the power to control humans, so he's stoked to possibly snag some of its abilities. So he starts testing out the skills, biting off his troll finger and spitting it on the ground. As he separates a part of his body, that finger starts to tremble and morph into a fish shape. Turns out the demon just jumps onto Kim's face and clings on tight. Kim gulps the demon down and burps, wondering if it just committed self-destruct. He's eaten a ton of parasites on Earth, but he couldn't snag any skills from the ones that just controlled insects and fish. But this demon, though, it could control humans, so he might snag some of its powers. With that, he tries out the skills and bites the troll's finger off, spitting it on the ground. As he separates a part of his body, it starts to twitch and morph into a fish shape. This leads him to think he can totally separate a part of his body and control it. But hey, there are limits to how big and long he can make it. Figuring he might level up this skill by munching on more hybrid beasts, he's ready to kick things off with some cleanup. While spying down at the civilians in the Demon King's crib, the demon generals are gathered up chatting about how gluttony went down so easily. They're wondering if there's any chance he's still kicking, but one of them drops the bomb that he's toast, since all the creepy parasite samples in his lab have bit the dust too. The demon then spills that gluttony was a tough cookie. Sure, he was a bit outdated, but he was still one of the 4 great kings, questioning how the heck he ended up biting the dust. They get word that some monster wiped out the humans Gluttony had on the hook, and then went for him, revealing that it's the knight rolling with the prince. With Gluttony and the 4 kings out of the game, the demon thinks about sending Wrath, who can totally throw down against the humans, but he's way too valuable to risk against the warrior. He mentions that Wrath is a pro at handling a horde of humans, so using him against the allied forces makes way more sense. Just then, one of the demons busts in and interrupts, dropping some bad news. As soon as he hears about what happened to his bro, Gluttony, everyone gets quiet. Wrath is ready to chase after the beast. Meanwhile, the prince and his squad are still on their journey, and the warrior is thinking that Kim's method was fire for taking out the demon. Curious, the warrior has a moment where he thinks he could have totally skipped the whole innocent people slaughter deal with his skill set, since those folks were just pawns in the demon's game. While our guy is tossing blame at the demon for the chaos, the warrior catches on that Kim looks totally unbothered by what went down. It's wild for him to think that Kim is the prince's secret guardian and is somehow pulling off the vibe of a demon. While the warrior is stressing over Kim's chill attitude towards it all, he suddenly hears the prince pipe up and the carriage comes to a screeching halt. The warrior asks what's up, and Edward looks terrified when he sees the creature looming in front of them. It turns out to be devour Wrath, who's here to get revenge for his fallen comrade Gluttony. The massive beast leans in, shaking the ground and freaking Edward and the saints out. Meanwhile, Kim steps out and asks the prince if he knows this creature, and Eddie admits he's read about it, but this is his first time seeing it IRL. So the story goes that 50 years ago, a demon warrior rode this beast into battle. He heard it's like twice as big as a dragon. Our guy is thinking that if this creature is twice the dragon's size, it's probably around 100 feet long, but it looks way bigger than that for real. The prince tells him that it's probably grown over the last 50 years, since reptiles keep growing their whole lives. Their convo gets cut short when the saints shout that now is not the time to gawk, and they need a game plan to take down this monster. All of a sudden, they all hush up when they hear some weird noise, which ends up being the beast's tail swinging like a wrecking ball smashing into the carriage. The giant demon cracks its tail, wrecking the carriage, and everyone hits the dirt. Pissed, the demon calls them puny bugs and demands to know who took out his homies, ready to get revenge. When the demon strikes its tail again, they all dodge the attack. Meanwhile, the Saintess tells Edward that blocking is his jam, pushing him to show them what he's made of. But the prince thinks that's just dumb. There's no way he can take that hit. He then looks over at the warrior, asking if he's got anything with his parry skill to deflect those blows. The warrior waves him off, claiming the strikes are way too strong, saying the Saints should just tank it and heal up later. But that seems like a no-go, and she won't have a second to recover before getting squished by that beast. With no real options, the three of them lock eyes with Knight Kim. He's a bit shy at first, asking if they really think he can take on that monster, but our guy reveals he's got a plan brewing. Meanwhile, the demon is having flashbacks. Even if his buddy got taken out, he knows getting hot-headed is a bad move. Although those scars from getting ambushed by humans still sting, he's smoothed out his strategies through experience. He's all about sniffing out the enemy, using his detection skills, sweeping the place clean so they can't hide, and intercepting when they try to roll up on him. This demon is sure he won't lose a single battle with these tactics, even against a warrior. However, the Saintess isn't really down with Kim's plan, thinking it's pretty reckless. While our boy asks her if she's got a better idea, the warrior figures that if they bail, it could put the towns in hot water. So even with no hope to win, it's go time. Just like that, the warrior dashes at the demon, and Kim gears up for the next move. Meanwhile, the warrior is clashing with the creature. We learn the holy sword of the goddess brings out its true power against evil beings. And if it's not facing the bad guys, it's just a regular blade. Seems like the beast's rage is coming from a place that's not really wicked or good, so because of that, the sword isn't flexing its full power. This demon is sure he won't lose a single battle with these tactics even against a warrior. He's all about sniffing out the enemy using his detection skills, sweeping the place clean so they can't hide, and intercepting when they try to roll up on him. But the Saintess doesn't vibe with Kim's plan, thinking it's pretty reckless. Our boy asks her if she's got any better ideas. The warrior thinks if they run, it could put the cities in serious danger, so even with no hope to win, they gotta step up and fight. Just like that, the warrior charges at the demon, and Kim gets ready for whatever's next. Meanwhile, the warrior is battling the beast. We find out that the holy sword of the goddess shows its ultimate power when facing evil. But if it's not up against something evil, it's just any old sword. Turns out the beast's anger isn't coming from a wicked or righteous place. So because of that, the sword isn't showing its full ability. While the warrior keeps dodging the attacks and moves closer to the beast, thinking there's no way it can swing its tail from this close. Out of nowhere, the demon's tail turns out to be super flexible, smacking the warrior hard. Luckily, he just barely dodges the full hit as his sword screeches against the ground, but he can't seem to stay on his feet. Watching the warrior start to lose hope, the demon taunts him, asking if this is all he's got, and thinks about how his demon buddy Ferris got taken down by a weakling like him. As the beast assumes the warrior is just making jokes before his end, the warrior yells, saying he can't believe their plan actually worked perfectly. The scene then takes us back to 5 minutes earlier, where Kim drops the only way to take down the monster. He explains that the warrior will keep the beast distracted while he sneaks up from underground. Spotting a scar on his belly, they plan to aim for that, but the warrior doubts if he's confident this will actually work. And our dude totally agrees, saying he just needs to keep it distracted long enough. Kim thinks the monster won't catch him, but might hear him digging underground. That's how the warrior will be the bait. While the warrior decides to roll with the plan, Kim asks why he trusts him, to which the warrior responds that it's super unlikely, because as a warrior, he has a skill that lets him sniff out lies. Our main character doesn't seem to be lying this time, and thinks that since the skills from this world won't work on him, he could totally lie to a warrior if he wanted, and plans on using that against him someday. The warrior then leaps towards the beast to grab its attention while Kim goes in for the attack from below, with the power of almost every animal. Digging underground was a piece of cake for him, with muscles like a troll, the body of a mole, and claws from a dragon. A moment later, the beast finally senses Kim and freaks out when he sees his dragon arm. Just like that, our boy leaps toward him with his dragon claws and bursts right into his body. Kim successfully gets inside the beast, but it's so big that it's hard to navigate in there. He checks out his new parasite skill, and they start to scatter everywhere. To his surprise, the parasites are feeding him all the info he needs. Thinking that the skill is super useful, our guy remembers that the parasite demon was buddies with the beast. Smirking devilishly, he wonders how cruel fate can be as the beast is getting taken down by his own friend. At that moment, he senses something inside the monster's body. While ripping it apart, he finds an organ and dives in for a feast. On the flip side, the warrior decides to go for it. But he sees the monster crying out in pain, begging for help, screaming that its insides are on fire. As the Saints flinch in horror, thinking it's way too cruel, Edward is shocked that his brother managed to pull it off. Right after that, the beast crashes down as it takes its last breath, and Kim splashes out through its eyes covered in blood. Seeing our guy ruthlessly burst out of the beast, the three of them are left totally speechless. On their way, Kim breaks the silence by asking what's up, and Edward explains that they're just shocked by what he did back there. But our dude doesn't really care too much since he scored a 6 skill from it. He then narrates the dinosaur monster ain't all that impressive despite its size. It just had big muscles, which he tore apart with the help of his strong troll muscles and dragon scales and skin that's way out of this world. The hunt wasn't a flop, it was totally a win. First, he chowed down on the monster's lungs, which were a super powerful mass of muscles, since the lungs need mad oxygen to fuel a behemoth size like that and can blast all that air back out with the same force. That means it made his dragon breath way stronger. Then he got blood vessels attached to its arteries that had these mini heart-like organs. This lets him keep pumping blood through his body, even if his actual heart gets wrecked. And lastly, he found something really valuable, and thanks to this, he can fly now. The scene shifts to the demon generals, learning that Wrath got taken out too, leaving just the 4 big kings. One of them cracks up madly and lets out that everything seems to be going according to the demon king's plan, adding that the warrior is on his way to the demon king's castle. They think, since they wiped out the human villages, the warrior will try to smash the source of the issue to stop more casualties. The demons seem to have succeeded in wiping out the relics of the old school without lifting a finger, while making the warrior think he took down the demon king's best generals. The demon general declares it's time for humanity to hit the dust. In this battle, humanity will win if they can take out the demon king, but the demon race has to either wipe them out or make them give up. The general goes on that humanity won't throw in the towel as long as the warrior is still standing. With the warrior being blessed by the goddess herself, the demon wraps it up that to win this war, they gotta wipe out humanity. In simple terms, they just need to decimate humanity before the warrior takes down the demon king, and those are the wise words of their new demon king. After that, all the demon generals swear their loyalty to their demon king, who comes from another world. The scene then switches to the 4 of them, walking through a rough area where the monster passed through. While they're walking, a demon pops up and tells the humans to stop right there. As more demon soldiers start to surround them, they take out the demons like champs. Kim takes down a couple of baddies and then spots a map that catches his eye. Once they handle the demons, Kim spills the tea about the map of the demon kingdom. He finds it on one of the demon goons. Checking it out, Edward totally sees that all the roads lead to one spot on the map and they all connect to the main battleground. Meanwhile, the Saints are vibing hard thinking this map's all about supply runs, and the warriors ready to take out the demon king now that they've got the lay of the land. But the prince peeps a village up in the mountains and thinks it's sketchy, since it's hooked up to the main road, despite not being strategic at all. The Saints are like, yo, Edward must think this village is the demon king's main hideout, and they're down to check it out. While the warrior's instincts are screaming that this village is important, he ultimately decides to roll with it. A week later, they pull up to the village and see civilians under demon control making weapons. Edward sees what he was expecting. The demons are cranking out weapons. But then, the warrior has this major moment of clarity and wonders what he's even supposed to do. That's when his bro reminds him they gotta stick to their sworn duties. The prince is all, we gotta take out the demons. And the warrior grips his shoulder, asking if he's really gonna off innocent civilians, claiming he sees no civilians here. Edward's like every civilian's in this war effort making weapons. The warrior stops him mid-rant and asks what he's even thinking, but in a flash, the dude's clutching his chest in pain. Edward calms him down, telling him to stick to his sacred code. The prince then asks if killing civilians is an evil act, and the warrior, still looking like he's in pain, replies that massacres aren't exactly a vibe, you know. The prince insists they're sneaking into the enemy's base to wreck their military stuff, take out their blacksmith, and cut off their supplies to save lives. In that moment, the warrior doubts himself and recalls his warrior code, which is all about being just and righteous. Without wasting time, Kim jumps right into the mission, leaving the warrior feeling helpless. It's got him questioning his morals and slowly losing his grip on what's good and what's not. With no emotion, our boy goes hard and takes out the civilians. While it seems like he's the only one putting in work since the warrior won't fight anyone who doesn't throw the first punch. The Saints freak out when they see a young demon get taken out. While Edward's got his hands full, Kim thinks they're all a bunch of useless faces, every single one of them. Later, the prince scores a gun and tells Kim what they've been whipping up here. Edward's stoked to spot a Mauser pistol, raving about how they've got a German gun enthusiast on their hands, asking Kim if he realizes what that means calling him brother. Wiping blood off his face, our boy suspects there's another player on the Demon King's side. Meanwhile, the warrior butts in asking if they found anything, and Edward tells him the Demon Kingdom's about to draft civilians into the war. The warrior's blown away by this, and the prince adds that a regular dude can use this pistol in battle with super simple instructions, and that's exactly what they were making these for. After listening, the warrior bounces, and Edward gives Kim props for a job well done. He hooks him up with a little vacation and hands him the map to feast like a king, marking the garrisons on it. Meanwhile, our boy thinks it's more like a business trip. He's pumped as he checks out the map, those fiery eyes, wondering if it's the perfect chance to test his new skills. Suddenly, they hear a huge noise near the village, and Edward, with a sly grin, figures things are going exactly how he wanted. The scene shifts to the warrior, who's unleashing his fury with some solid punches. Crying his heart out, the poor dude seems so lost and wonders what he's supposed to do. Next, we're taken to Stuckfit, the Demon Kingdom's port city, where we meet Mitten, a half-human, half-demon kid lugging heavy sacks around. After hauling 20 sacks of gunpowder and 10 crates of coal, the boy heads out to collect his pay, counting the cash for rent and food for him and his little sis Mean. Letting out a deep sigh, Mitten reflects on how tough life is, barely scraping by, but he's determined to grind harder. He remembers his sister Mean, who gave him a lollipop he bought for her when he was coming back home. The next day, he's back at it, throwing the sacks over his shoulder, which feel lighter than before, thinking maybe he's gotten stronger. Mitten knows he's just a dockhand for now, but one day he dreams of being one of those 7 deadly generals. The scene flips back to Kim, who's chatting about the second brain and some giant dinosaurs, as scientists think. Their size means nerves take longer to get signals from the brain, so they have another brain near their waist to help out the main brain. Kim figured out where the second brain on a dinosaur was when he flipped his brain into another creature, redoing its nervous system. So even if it's a body part unique to that creature, he can use it freely without any practice. Feeling lighter than yesterday, he hopes he's getting stronger. Mitten thinks he might be just a dockhand for now, but someday he dreams of being one of the 7 deadly generals. The scene flips to Kim, who talks about the second brain and some massive dinosaurs that scientists think might exist. Their big size meant it took longer for their nerves to get signals from the brain, so they can hypnotize another brain chilling near the waist to help the main one out. Kim locates the second brain on the dinosaur when he zaps its brain into that of another creature, totally remaking its nervous system. So even if it's a body part that's unique to that creature, he can still use it without breaking a sweat. He gives her a heads up that if she tries to mess with his control again, he'll have to pull some serious moves. After hearing this, but like he's never really tapped into his smarts that much, because there's a chance he could totally lose control of his body to the original owner's brain. But yo, if he flexes this skill on the second brain, he can switch up completely into another creature's brain without any bad vibes. Basically, he can zoom through the skies by morphing his whole body into a dragon minus the brain part. By mixing those slimy lizard men vibes with dragon scales, he swapped the lizard goo for mystium slime. Plus, he juiced up his bod with dinosaur lungs and blood vessels, along with troll's blood and marrow for that sweet Regan power. With all these upgrades stacked, he's way stronger than ever, with beastly muscles from orcs getting close to becoming the ultimate creature on the planet. The roar that shakes the ground, the dragon kicks off an attack on the village demons with its fire breath. Freaked out by the surprise ambush, the demons haul ass to save themselves as the dragon munches down on a fish-like demon, swallowing it whole. While witnessing the dragon's chaos, Mitten bolts to save his sister, feeling lucky that their room's near the port so he can get to her. But bummer, the dragon swoops right toward his room and totally crushes the building. In a blink, the place turns into a pile of rubble while Mitten stands there losing his mind, trying to process the madness he just saw. His eyes scan the wreckage and he catches a glimpse of his sister's hand sticking out from beneath the debris, sending him into a frenzy. He snatches a sword and charges at the dragon, aiming to stab it, but his power is no match for the fiercest dragon out there, and the sword shatters into pieces. Sadly, Mitten gets gobbled up by the dragon. After that, Kim figures Edward tagged all the spots where they stash and make military supplies, thinking the prince was out to weaken the Demon King's forces. Even though it's not his problem, he's stoked about the marked points on the map because he got to chow on a ton of creatures and can't wait to test out the skills from that fish thing he ate. Jumping into action 10 hours after Stuckfit got wrecked, the demons seem to be huddled in their conference room, whining about their city's losses, including all the damage and lost supplies. When they find out it was a dragon, one of the demons throws a question at Sloth, the dragon demon, asking what she thinks about it, since she's one of them. Sloth can't believe it, because it's been said that like during the 9 hours from sunset to sunrise, the so-called dragon only breathed fire maybe 50 times, and that's a big deal, unless it's the legendary Dragon Road. The three-eyed demon eyes Sloth suspiciously when he hints that the Dragon Road is actually chilling with them, but she glares at him. Furious, he's accusing her. The demon seems to be hinting that if their Dragon Road exists, there can't be another legendary dragon out there, but the demon general cuts in, reminding them that focusing on that isn't the key issue right now. Instead, they got to figure out what to do next. The demon general then spills the tea that news about Stuckfit has spread throughout the kingdom. In just one day, that dragon has turned into everyone's #1 fear. If the 7 deadly generals can take this threat out, it'll boost morale across the kingdom. Other demons give him props for the idea and cheer him on. Meanwhile, Sloth decides to join this time since the dragon from Stuckfit could be of her kind, and she's ready to show what a real dragon's made of. From Kim's perspective, the chaos in Harbor City was the dopest thing he's pulled since becoming a warrior and rolling with this crew. He snacked on hybrid species like fish and insect demons, and now he's amped to level up his new dragon skills in dragon mode. Thanks to his recent feast, he understands his dragon form like a champ. Figuring if he keeps riding this wave, he'll soon hit his ultimate goal, which is to be the top predator. He glides over another village ready to drop some serious chaos. Now, when the demons first spot him, they think he's one of those demon generals, but then they clock that it's the Stuckfit dragon and start running like crazy. The dragon breathes fire everywhere, going hard on all the living beings like it's a buffet. Meanwhile, Sloth flaps around looking for her prey. and the reports say, the dragon was last seen near the 6th Army Post an hour ago. Not knowing who this dragon is, she plans to set things straight with it as soon as she spots it. While Kim wreaks havoc in just an hour, Sloth finally lays her eyes on the dragon and sees him munching on the dead, finding it totally gruesome. More importantly, she was told it's a red dragon, but when she checks out the dragon with body parts from different creatures, she's totally perplexed. She then preps to use her skill known as the Dragon Speak, which is kinda like dragon magic, to instill fear and dominate her foes. Sloth shouts for it to stop, and a moment later she realizes her skill isn't hitting home with Kim. This makes her furious, and she can't believe it because her Dragon Speak can usually even take down other dragons. While our guy realizes she's way tougher than the weaklings he's been smashing, he straight up tells her it's best to ditch any thoughts of trying to control him with her powers. He warns her that if she tries to mess with him again, he's gonna have to take some serious counter moves. After hearing this, including the warrior himself, reborn, the warrior rolls 10 years back in time and heads straight to the Epic Wood, where he wipes out the slime that's going to evolve into the monster of destruction later. So Sir Kim just doing his thing in the forest is safe, and that's how he saves the prince's life, who originally bit it in the warrior's timeline. Her eyes twitching like crazy mad vibes as she calls him a punk. She's all high and mighty, and now her pride's hurt, so she's like, I'm going to toss you into the deepest pit of despair? And just like that, they both throw down, showing off their moves. After like 10 minutes of scratching and roaring, Sloth is totally wiped out, her dragon body aching all over. She figures out her opponent's just been chillin' blocking her hits the whole time, and she's never seen a dragon this strong like ever. Kim on the flip side knows that even a dragon can't mess with Mystium and Ogre's muscles. And if she can't even touch him, then there's no way any other creatures are going to leave more than a tiny scratch on him. So he's like, time to move on to the next experiment, and gets ready to ditch that Mystium slime off his body. But as soon as he does, Sloth jumps at him, knowing he's all vulnerable, and bites down hard on his neck, tearing at his skin. Caught off guard by that sneak attack, Kim shoves her away. Using his crazy fast healing, he gets his muscles back in check, leaving her totally shook, wondering what kind of freak he really is. Wrapping up this round of experimentation, Kim decides to let Sloth slide for her contribution, telling her to bounce. But that sends her into a rage, triggering her pride again, and she's ready to flex the true powers of the legendary Dragon Road. With her skills, she gathers a fireball while he's thinking he might have to take her out. The legendary road dragon barfs out what looks like parasites crashing down and totally confused about what's happening. That's when Kim drops the bomb that it's his flesh she gobbled up. It turned into parasites and is munching on her insides. He warns her to watch what she eats, laughing that she better be careful next time since there won't be a next time for her. Meanwhile, Sloth hits her last stand and drops. Suddenly, someone's reaching out to Kim through telepathy. Next scene takes us to the warrior spilling his backstory. He says he's a disciple of a goddess and a time traveler from 10 years in the future. 10 years from now, demons and humans band together to take on this monstrous threat. In the future, this monster devours the 7 deadly generals, the Demon King, and all 4 great kings, even the warrior himself. Reincarnated, the warrior zips 10 years back to the past and heads straight for the Great Forest, where he wipes out the slime that was... The warrior saved a life that was on the line by changing up the future, even though he's totally clueless about what's coming next. Clenching his fists, the warrior's got no regrets about ditching the future he knew and taking down the monster of destruction. But one thing he's bummed about is not digging deeper into the Demon King's crew. If he had researched more, they wouldn't be so weak against the demon, or at least figured out this demon's powers, referring to one of those general demons' greed. The scene flips to 30 minutes back where the Saints, the warrior, and Prince Edward are still on their grind. As they're strolling, the warrior asks the prince where he sent Sir Kim off to, and he spills that he sent Kim somewhere super important. As Edward mentions, they're almost at their next spot. Keeping it low-key, Greed asks the warrior to chill on the slaughter and duke it out peacefully. But the prince is like, "What's your game?" To clear things up, the demon general says he'll settle who wins by playing a game. But the prince ain't buying it and thinks he's trying to pull a fast one. Yet the warrior jumps in and accepts the demon's offer, feeling like he's taken way too many lives just getting here. Greed is loving this and thinks it was too easy to play them. He then leads them inside, calling them honored guests for one night only. As the game's about to kick off, the other demons start whispering about getting to witness the warrior take a fall and hope humanity's toast tonight. After that, the shady-looking Greed reveals the game is poker, and Edward steps up first. The demon drops his terms, saying if the prince wins, he gets safe passage, but if he loses, Greed's taking his soul. Moments later, Edward slams his hand on the table and accuses the demon of being a total scam. As the dude shakes with rage, Greed reminds him he said it ain't a scam as long as he's not tripped up. Meanwhile, Edward's left in shock, saying this round's bogus, and he's set on. As the demon yanks out his soul and shoves it into a coin, the saint flips out, demanding to know how dare he steal Eddie's soul and calls him a jerk. That's when Greed reveals it's a unique skill that makes good on the agreement they made before. The warrior saved a life that was hanging by a thread by changing the future, even though he's not sure what's next for him. Clenching his fist, the warrior doesn't seem to regret giving up the future he knew to take down the monster of destruction. But there's one thing eating at him, which is not digging deeper into the Demon King's army. If he had snooped a bit more, they wouldn't have been so weak against the demon, or, at the very least, would have caught wind of this demon's powers talking about one of the general demon's greed. The scene then shifts to 30 minutes earlier, where the saints, the warrior, and Prince Edward are continuing their quest. While they're walking, the warrior asks the prince where he sent Sir Kim off to, and he responds that he sent Kim to a super important spot. As Edward tells him they're almost at their next stop, they run into a demon, blocking their path, who greets the warrior's crew. Turns out it's one of the 7 deadly generals, Greed, who's like, "Welcome to my turf, Grand Vegas," being all humble. Greed's like, "Chill, let's stop the killing and duke it out peacefully." But the prince is not having it, asking him what the real play is. To clear things up, the demon general suggests they settle this with a game. But when the prince raises an eyebrow, thinking Greed's up to no good, the warrior jumps in and accepts the demon's challenge, wishing to end all the carnage he's caused by being there. Greed is hyped to hear this, and thinks it was way too easy to fool them. He then shows them inside, calling them honored guests for just one night. As the game's about to kick off, the other demons start whispering about how they can't wait to see the warrior bite the dust tonight and hope humanity's done for. After that, creepy Greed reveals they're playing poker, and Edward decides to go first, feeling super confident since he mastered poker back when he was going undercover in the poaching gig, and even that beast Kim isn't a match for him. The demon lays out his conditions, saying if the prince wins, he'll let him pass without a scratch, but if he loses, Greed's taking his soul. A few moments pass, and Edward slams his hand on the table like, "You're scamming us, dude." As he's flipping out, Greed reminds him that he said it's not a scam unless he gets caught. Meanwhile, Edward's left shook. Like this round doesn't even count, determined to figure out the trick he pulled on him. But the prince ends up losing, and true to his word, Greed snatches away his soul. While the demon takes out his soul and puts it in a coin, the saint flips, yelling at Greed about stealing Eddie's soul, calling him a total jerk. That's when Greed spills that it's just a unique skill, enforcing their earlier deal. Edward smacks his hand on the table, yelling at the demon for being a total fraud. While the dude is shaking with rage, Greed reminds the prince that he claimed it ain't a scam as long as he doesn't get busted. Meanwhile, Edward's just standing there all shell-shocked, insisting that this round doesn't even count, and gets all pumped to find out how the demon pulled one over on him. But still, the prince ends up losing, and as he promised, Greed snags his soul. While the demon pulls out his soul and pops it into a coin, the saint loses it and screams at the demon for being a jerk and stealing Eddie's soul. That's when Greed spills the tea, saying it's just a dope skill that seals the deal they made earlier. No cap, it's known as the absolute banger execution. The saint swings at the demon, but Greed's like, "Chill, no savage moves work here." Not while his second skill, Total Peace Zone, is in play, being pure evil, and all the demons betting that with those 2 skills, he's basically unbeatable at the card game. Tricking the saintess, Greed pegs that Edward is her whole vibe, which gets her all flustered. The demon reads her like an open book, emotions all over her face. Then he's like, "Yo, let's play a game. If you want the prince back, let's bet Edward's soul, and you gotta risk yours too." The warrior's all like, "Yo, that's way too risky." But the saintess is like, "I got this. I'm called the ace of the convent for a reason." Confused, the warrior's like, "Wait, do you guys even gamble in the convent?" And the saintess is like, "What do you think I did during those long winters as the only girl at the convent?" Tossing the cards aside, she decides to roll with dice, and out of nowhere, after a bit, Greed snags her soul too, cause she totally loses. The demon's like almost lost to the saintess and mutters he hasn't seen a match like her in ages while the warrior's stuck all alone. Greed then hits up the warrior trying to pull the same stunt and asks if he wants to play to win back his friend's souls, only needing to stake his own soul. But the warrior's spiraling, freaking out cause he's never gambled before, thinking, dude, I've literally never gambled in my life. He's torn cause he can't leave his crew hanging like that. Just then, someone bursts through the door like a champ, smashing a demon up like it's nothing. As Kim makes a legendary entrance, the warrior can't hide his hype seeing him, and Greed's like, "Welcome, hothead." And the demons are convinced he just walked into his own grave, while our dude peeks at the soulless saintess and Edward thinking they're like totally useless. He decides to wrap it up, quick, and get back to doing his real thing, clenching his armored fist. But Greed's like, "You thinking of brute force cause using violence around me is just pointless with my 6-skill Total Peace Zone." Kim's like, "Yeah, the warrior confirms it, saying the demon's speaking facts, his skills totally neutralize any throwdowns inside here. Seems like our boy hit the jackpot cause he's all about that demon's skill." Then Greed explains the prince and saintess are both his now, and to snag them back, Kim's gotta win against him. The demon's like, "Bet something of equal value. You want their souls, you gotta risk yours too." Our dude seems down, but then he hits with a curveball, betting 2 souls, his and the warrior's soul. The warrior loses it, like, "What the heck are you doing?" Kim's like, "Yo, since the demon took 2 souls, we gotta bet 2 souls if we want them back." Greed's like, "True that," and our dude's like, "I got this, I can absolutely take him down." The warrior's panicking, but seems to trust him. Betting 2 souls, Greed's like, "What's your game?" Kim's hands are raised, thinking they were gonna play rock, paper, scissors, but then he just clocks the demon right in the face, sending him crashing. Turns out Kim's figured out through his experiments that skills can't mess with him. Long story short, this monster isn't fazed by any abilities targeting him, just like how he takes damage from a fireball, creates a fireball, and tosses it at the target. It's because it's a skill that throws a fireball generated by a skill. Same goes for rapid shot and guided shot. Basically, the demon's whole total peace zone skill totally fails on him because that only affects those throwing down violence within the zone. Back to the scene, Kim smashing his feet down on the demon. It's the first time in his life that Banio Greed feels like he's understanding this whole pain thing. When it finally hits him, he realizes the total peace zone is broken and defeat gets carved deep into his soul. Plus, Vano's other unique skill, Absolute Execution, gets yanked away since the agreement conditions were met. Just like that, the two souls come back, and the Saintess and Edward are shook. Meanwhile, the demon's like, this is such a scam. Kim, who's already wrecked him, goes for round 2, betting Greed's life and everything he's got left. Our Savage is like, you going right or left? Grinning madly, Kim throws a wild kick, and Bacanio takes a wild guess. He guesses wrong, and our dude kicks him hard, blood flying everywhere. Seeing one of the notorious kings getting wrecked, the demons are shitting bricks and running for their lives. But our monster traps them and declares, ain't nobody leaving here alive. The warrior's like, bro chill, we don't gotta kill for no reason. Giving him a cold glare, Kim's like, those scumbags were loving it while Bacanio stole souls. And cleaning up this trash is straight up righteous. The warrior's still trying to talk some sense into him, aiming his sword at him. Blamos were loving the show while Bacano was snagging people's souls and clearing these losers out is righteous. While the warrior's trying to talk sense into him, the knight's got his sword aimed right at him. So the dude's like, what's it gonna be, justice or goodness? But the warrior's just silent. Kim's all like, dude, get these peeps out of here. Someone who can't even figure out their own heart is just gonna mess things up. The warrior bounces with the saints and Edward leaving the demons inside, yelling and begging to be let out. That heartless beast starts tidying up and just munches on the demons who are screaming in pain, like it's no big deal, chowing them down like he's some savage monster. Got some skills after making that crazy deal with the demon general, you know. As soon as he got those skills, his brain's flooded with info. When he took over the casino, Kim found out it was Greed's personal hangout where he ran the whole show. Now that he's in charge, he's thinking about testing some theories, but time's running out. He's got to ditch the fire extinguishers and pump oxygen in there. Suddenly, the monster breathes fire and boom, the whole place blows up. The warrior's like, whoa, but then remembers what Sir Kim said and just walks away. Cut to the demon's lair where the last two demon generals are freaking out. A little demon runs in asking what's up, and one of them tells her they lost contact with the sloth. Apparently Greed's spot in Grand Vegas is toast, and he's MIA. The little demon starts crying because they just lost two super talented demons. One of the big bad generals, Jealousy, addresses her as Majesty and says the plan is still rolling without the four big kings messing things up, so there's no need to be sad about her friends. The demon apologizes, saying those guys stepped up to take down the warrior, and it's tragic, but mourning would just be an insult to their bravery. They all agree the warrior stalled them, but their plan is almost at the finish line. Majesty decides it's all for the greater good, feels wiped out, and just bounces. After she leaves, Jealousy and Lust get into a spat over their titles. But Lust seems invested in her plan since they're close to wrapping things up, thinking if they kick it, they won't have any hiccups. Hearing that, Jealousy's like, who should go first, and straight up volunteers himself. Lust's worried watching Jealousy like that, but Jealousy reassures him he's just an old dude who wants to go first. We then zoom to the wrecked Grand Vegas blasted from the explosion. And guess what? Kim's the lone survivor. He's thinking setting that fire was risky because his super healing powers come from a troll. And guess what? Trolls are weak to fire. But luckily, he shielded himself with dragon scales and lizard man slime. Plus, if his healing area gets cooked, he's done for. That fight with the demon dragon made him slip, and it could have been bad if the dragon roasted his healing shoulder. Fast forward, Kim hears something moving in the rubble and spots a salamander. Wondering if it's someone's pet demon, Ray's the lizard jumps up, and bam, it's a 10-foot-tall giant reptile. Our dude thinks this lizard can handle dragonfire and is totally fascinated, so he goes in for a snack, grabs it by the tail, and bites right into that salamander with his sharp shark teeth tearing it apart. Later, he joins the warrior and the crew. Meanwhile, Prince Edward's head is pounding, and he's like, being stuck in that chip is the worst. He sees Kim grinning and asks what's good, calling him a creepy weirdo in his mind. But Kim skips the formalities and just lets him know he escaped a fiery situation. Turns out that weird lizard he chowed down on is a rare one that's fireproof even to dragon flames. It oozes fireproof slime on its skin and inside its cells. Now he can use that on his troll skin, which he couldn't cover before saying he's leveled up his game. While Kim spills about his new skills, Edward shakes his head trying to process everything and feels kinda on edge about it. Chatting in English, Kim reassures him he'll head back home when he figures it out, so no need to stress. But Edward looks freaked out, feeling threatened by his sworn bro, realizing knowing something in his head is way different from feeling it in his heart. Kim thinks about how they're in this together, but if Edward sees him as a source of fear, it could cause some major issues. To chill him out, Kim tells him he might be a vicious dude, but he's also helpful, hoping that eases his mind. Edward's like, what do you mean? And Kim spills that he did some of the work for him while he was out cold, telling him the warrior ditched justice and took the goodness route. Hearing that, Eddie's like, bingo, that's strike two, grinning like a maniac. The prince thinks he just needs to hit one more condition to take down the warrior. And it's revealed that the warrior is the most powerful dude on the Elmwood continent, not just in strength, but he's also shielded from the whole cosmic plan known as destiny. As the Demon King's army rolls up on them, Kim casually chats in English, assuring Edward he'll go back when he knows how, telling him to chill. Edward, still looking panicked, feels he's in danger from his sworn bro, talking about how knowing stuff in his head and feeling it in his heart don't match. Then Kim thinks about their partnership. But if Edward sees him as a threat, that might lead to some bad vibes. To smooth things over, he tells him he's vicious, but also helpful, hoping to calm him down. Edward asks him to elaborate, and Kim reveals he handled things while Edward was out, saying the warrior turned away from justice and picked goodness. Eddie seems to hit the nail on the head and marks his strike two. With a monster grin, the prince believes he just has to complete one more task before he can take down the warrior. Turns out the warrior is the most powerful being on Elmwood, not just in pure strength, but he's also been protected from Destiny's wild scheme. As the Demon King's army closes in, going at the warrior, he totally dodges a hit that would have wiped out any regular human like 1,000 times over, and in crazy life-or-death moments, someone swoops in to save him. If he's up against a totally unbeatable foe, fate just rolls in and hands him the win. When the warrior finds himself in a situation that's like a 1-in-a-million shot, a miracle always pops off. So to take down the warrior, you'd need some serious power to mess with his destiny. But seriously, nobody that strong has ever shown up. This led to the Demon King getting wrecked by the human warrior, and the human king getting taken out by the demon warrior. His destiny's all about keeping him safe if he's a warrior, otherwise it's a no-go. If the warrior tries to ditch his qualifications, destiny ain't got his back anymore. Meanwhile, the warrior's just stoked he scored a carriage since it's a long haul ahead of them. The prince is just clowning around, saying it's 'cause of him they got blessed by the goddess herself. Edward then breaks it down for Kim about what it takes to be a warrior, the most righteous, the most just, and the most virtuous. But honestly, the warrior already said peace out to the virtuous thing at that demon village and went against the righteous vibes at the casino. At this point, he just needs to give up one more qualification. And he's not a warrior anymore. Both Kim and Edward are chopping it up in Japanese, so nobody can catch their convo. While cruising in the cart, our dude is curious why the prince is so hell-bent on taking out the warrior. That's when the prince spills the tea that this wasn't originally his game plan. He's just running with what his pops had laid out. The guy the king totally thought his firstborn should take the throne, while his second son, him, was just meant to ride shotgun as an advisor. So the king came up with a plot to make the warrior lose his title, which meant forcing him to pick between being the warrior and the throne. But he totally backed down on that since he was scared stiff of the goddess's wrath. Somehow, Edward got wind of his plans, though he admits he struggled so hard to break through those seal spells. So now, after remixing some of the plans himself, he's rolling with those ideas. Kim's picking up what he's throwing down, but is like, yo, that's not what I asked. He's trying to figure out why the prince wants the warrior dead, because it doesn't seem like he holds any grudge that'd make him want to do it. The evil prince then lets it slip that if his brother, the warrior, bites the dust, the sorrow that his old man feels would outweigh any of his own sadness. At that moment, they hit the flat-filled plains looking like the spot where the Demon King's castle is, but the prince is feeling some type of way, because in video games, the Demon King's crib is always surrounded by lava or chilling in a toxic swamp. He thinks it's super weird to find it just sitting in the middle of the plains. Meanwhile, our dude thinks this place is straight up goofy and wonders who's setting up shop here. This makes them suspect that something's off. Kim notices there's literally zip around them, not even an insect buzzing about. The prince is wondering what the heck happened here, while our guy is convinced they gotta be nearing something big. Suddenly, the horse lets out a loud whinny and halts in its tracks, refusing to move as it's shaking in fright. The warrior hops out while the prince checks out why his little bro asks him what's up. The warrior shrugs it off, saying he thinks he felt something weird, but can't pinpoint it. He says they might figure it out if they get closer to the castle, but with the horse acting up, they're kinda stuck. Once the horse stops, it won't take another step. First off, the prince tries to chill the horse out with some grass, but it's not biting. Then the sadist even tries hitting it with a healing spell in case it was hurt, but there's nothing physically wrong with it. Our dude on the flip side adds his own twist by trying to spook the horse, but it only freaks out even more. Finally, the warrior gives this epic pep talk about how important it is to take down the Demon King, but the horse isn't moving an inch. Just like that, they decide to crash here for the night, since they can't really do anything. Just when Edward unties the horse so it can chill, the horse kicks him and bolts for its life. The warrior feels something's off and pulls out his sword, warning them that they're already surrounded, followed by a creepy voice. The voice grumbles that it's such a bummer to see who the warrior hangs with, pointing at the prince, calling him clueless and oblivious. On top of that, his detective skills are whack worse than any creature, making the demon question how they even made it this far alive. The warrior tells the demon to show his face, while the demon ponders if there's even a reason for that, and raises his magic stick, smashing it against the ground. This causes the ground to shake, making them think it's a quake. But everything clears up when thousands of undead start crawling out from the ground. and the demon general introduces himself as Richmond, one of the four big kings, the one who's going to stop them. It's then noted that Richmond, known as Jealousy, has been repping the demon kingdom longer than anyone else, 200 years to be exact. He's squared off against 2 warriors and rocked with 3 demon kings up until now. This dude's detective skills are straight up trash, worse than any creature, and it makes the demon wonder how he's even still breathing. The warrior tells the demon to show himself while the demon thinks, "Do I even need to?" He lifts his magic stick and slams it on the ground like a boss. The whole place shakes, making everyone think an earthquake's going down. But then it all clears up like a foggy day when suddenly thousands of undead start crawling up from the dirt, and the demon general drops his name, Richmond, one of the 4 major kings who's going to stop them. It's then revealed that Richmond Demerod, also known as Jealousy, has been chilling in the demon kingdom longer than anyone, like 200 years or something. He's taken on 2 warriors and has served 3 demon kings up to now. For like half of his 200 years, he ran the show as the chancellor under the king. It was a major role that kept an eye on everything happening inside and outside the kingdom. Honestly, it's something most demons wouldn't even dream of pulling off. But surprise, he was undead, not your typical zombie or skeleton type. Nah, he wasn't even a half undead like a vampire that's always got to chug blood to get by. He was a lich, the top tier undead, and the dude couldn't kick the bucket as long as his phylactery holding his soul and power was in one piece. He got way stronger after dying once. Now his ego was through the roof. The generals and even the demon king in the castle didn't dare step up to him. Not until that one day, when the old school warriors crashed the demon king's castle and Richmond tried to flex by raising an army of undead out on the flat field. But they got wiped out by the warriors' light magic, and Richmond himself got taken out by that same dude. When Richmond's body revived from his phylactery, the warrior was already long gone, taking out the demon king as well. After that mess, Richmond's pride hit rock bottom. Other demons started chatting behind his back, calling him selfish and cocky. Any other dude in that spot would have silenced them with their power and licked their wounded pride. But not Richmond. He was a next-level sorcerer. He didn't sink that low and blame others for his failure. Instead, like a true researcher, he dug deep into why he got wrecked. The main reason for his defeat? The warrior's light magic. There was no way his undead army wasn't getting slapped around by that light magic. For 4 years, Richmond busted his butt trying to toughen up his undead crew and his own physical form against light. And guess what? He got super strong. Meanwhile, the saints and the warrior were scratching their heads, trying to figure out why they couldn't sense the undead when they usually picked up on their hate vibes. But there was nothing there. On top of that, the saintess couldn't even pick up any evil vibes from them. Even though she was all about that holy magic, the warriors had her using it. But when she cast her holy magic, the undead didn't get hurt at all. Instead, they looked even cleaner. Like, what the heck? They realized her magic was healing them instead. After that, the demon let loose the fun part he had been holding back and slammed his magic stick on the ground, whipping out holy magic out of nowhere. The sight of undead using holy magic was wild, making the warrior go bananas while the saints were left shook as Richmond showed off his secret like it was some epic surprise and pulled out a temple's holy scripture. The saint, looking all suspicious, recognized it and shot him a question about how he got that. Richmond just grinned and said it was obvious he was down with the temple. For real, all these undead chilling on the flat field, including him, were disciples of the temple, so they didn't have any beef or bad vibes towards the living. Hearing that the saint thought it was totally absurd for undead to roll with the temple, but funny enough, Richmond wasn't bothered and found it hilarious roasting her about how she just became a saintess 10 years ago. He dropped the bomb that he'd been a temple disciple way before she was even born, reading the holy scriptures on repeat, just to boost his holy magic resistance. Daring to call his commitment to the temple ridiculous, he threw down that he'd acted out the epic deeds of tons of saints and holy men. He schooled her that 10 years of devotion was beginner-level stuff. And with that level she had right now, she was at the level of some lowly undead pointing to an ugly-looking undead. The Saint Tess was legit fuming for him, comparing her devotion to that of an undead. But Richmond kept spilling the tea that feelings like hate and resentment are just jealousy towards the living. But with faith, he managed to kick that jealousy that ran deep in his bones to the curb. He called himself the general of pure jealousy, no cap. Left in disbelief, the saints tried to justify that undead didn't fit the temple's criteria for natural life, and there was no way creatures like them could have temple faith. Richmond fired back that there's nothing in this world the goddess hasn't touched, and everything has a seed of devotion in it. He said the undead bodies were crafted by the goddess and brought back to life with her magical touch. So it's totally possible for them to have faith. When the saints realized Richmond just quoted a scripture, they were shook and murmured that even if demons had faith, the goddess couldn't give that holy light power to such creepy creatures. But Richmond threw another curveball, saying that so-called creepy creatures like him had embraced pure light, adding that it's not shocking for the goddess to hand them holy light powers. Intimidated by how woke this demon was, the saints had to admit he wasn't wrong. They figured this dude was clearly a devoted temple disciple. Trying to play him, she told Richmond to get lost while they carried the divine message from the goddess herself. But the demon shot back, saying she couldn't sweep the laws of the earth under the rug with heavenly rules, pointing out the heavenly laws don't count since they walked into his territory. And even if the goddess said his actions were shady, he was all in on serving the demon king. And then he was like, enough chit-chat. The goddess couldn't just gift holy light to such nasty creatures. But Richmond surprised her again, dropping another line and saying that so-called nasty creatures like him have embraced the pure light, adding that it's no shocker for the goddess to bless them with holy light. Feeling kind of shook by the demon's knowledge, the saints realized he was speaking facts. They figured this dude was clearly a hardcore disciple of the temple. Trying to outsmart him, she tells Richmond to move aside while they deliver the divine message straight from the goddess. But the demon said it straight, saying she can't just ignore the earth's laws by pulling heaven's rules, stating those heavenly laws are useless since they're in his territory. And even if the goddess says he's wrong, he's sworn loyalty to the demon king, saying it's time to wrap it up. Richmond shuts the holy book and tells his zombie crew that it's time to get to work. They've been waiting long enough. The demons come charging at them, and the saints throw up a holy shield. But to her shock, the demons smash right through and go for her. Just as the undead monster is about to chow down on her, someone zaps it with light magic, sending the demon flying. It's Prince Edward swooping in to rescue her with a beam of light and shouts for Angela the Saints to snap back into action. Watching Eddie tackle the baddies makes Angela blush, bringing back memories of when he protected her from wolves back in the day. But she shakes off those thoughts, remembering she can't let her feelings get in the way as a saintess. She jumps in with the prince, who looks pretty hyped to have her back. Meanwhile, Kim's just chilling in the carriage when a demon interrupts his peace. He smacks it away with his armored fist. The warrior checks on him, asking if he's good, and Kim hops down from the carriage. Happy to see he's still standing, the warrior warns him that light magic won't do squat against these undead creeps. Kim couldn't care less. Stepping up to face the zombies, and the warrior is taken aback by his fearless move. The real threat rolls in, and without wasting a second, Kim yanks off the demon's arm and takes it out like it's nothing. Kim points out that the demons break apart when you hit them, and the warrior is totally shocked. He's stuck on the idea that light magic is the way to go against these undead jerks, thinking he just needs to swing his sword, more convinced they're nothing but the Demon King's lackeys. The warrior jumps in, believing his holy sword is about to rain down some serious pain. He figures that as long as these undead are immune to light magic, they'll just come back if he slashes them. So this badass thinks he can wipe them out since a normal sword would snap. But his holy sword is unbreakable. Meanwhile, Angela's throwing down some heavy punches, taking out monsters left and right with her fists enough to keep the low-key priest safe, just like the Pope said 1,000 years ago. Edward's feeling bummed he can't use his go-to light magic right now. But he's got another trick up his sleeve. Watching the crew take down the undead jokers, Kim's surprised they're holding their own better than he thought. But seeing so many of them, he decides to join the fun to finish this fast, transforming into a dragon. As Richmond peeks at them struggling with the endless army of undead, he notes that even if they take out 1,000, that's barely a drop in the bucket of his whole squad, warning that they'll be joining his undead community soon. But his attitude gets a reality check when the dragon fries his army, making him rethink his whole life. As the flames spread, the dragon lifts his warrior pals up and soars through the skies. Angela and the warrior are totally freaking out by this surprise dragon switch-up, and Kim lets them know they're heading right for the Demon King's crib, getting suspicious. So like Angela and the warrior totally freak when the dragon suddenly flips the script, Kim drops the bomb that they're headed straight for the Demon King's crib. Getting super suspicious? The warrior glances at Edward, who seems unfazed, making him wonder if he knew this all along. He asks the prince if Sir Kim is a dragon, but Edward's like, nah. They want answers, and that's when the prince says he can't spill the tea on Kim's true identity. Eddie says Sir Kim's background isn't like any other human. He's dangerous enough to make everyone an enemy and refuses to say more. Meanwhile, the warrior's mind is racing, thinking Kim can turn into a dragon, and has a crazy backstory leading him to think he's a shapeshifter. Freaking out, the warrior asks the prince if he's a shapeshifter, but Eddie shuts him down. The dragon's got this wild backstory, and they're thinking he's a shapeshifter. The warrior's all panicky and asks the prince if that's legit, but Eddie's being super tight-lipped, feeling all kinds of troubled. Stressed, the warrior thinks that shapeshifting is a special skill from a kind of demon, which means that Sir Kim could be a demon who turned on his peeps, or a half-breed from a demon and a human. In short, the warrior remembers his past run-in with a monster and suspects that Kim might be the destruction monster, but the vibes from a demon and a human, which is nuts. Long story short, the warrior's tripping over memories of his own past death thanks to the monster, and he's side-eyeing Kim, wondering if he might be the monster causing all this chaos. But he remembers how Kim helped them take down the demon generals and just saved them from the undead a second ago. Remembering he already took down that destruction monster himself, the warrior decides to trust the good-hearted Mr. Kim and believes he's definitely not the monster of destruction. Getting closer to the Demon King's castle, the warrior is shocked he's not vibing with the thought of the easygoing Mr. Kim as the big bad. As they roll up to the Demon King's pad, the warrior is shook that they pulled this stunt in 30 minutes, and he peeps at the castle, which looks kinda basic. Then the dragon's like, yo, check behind us, and they all see the undead squad trailing them. And the Saints, they cover the distance in 30 minutes and peek at the castle, which looks super basic. While the dragon tells them to check behind, they all see the undead army riding their tails. And the Saints guess from a distance that they'll catch up in 2 hours. Crunching the numbers, the warrior thinks about whether it's even possible to take down the Demon King and escape on Kim's back. He figures there's not enough time for that plan. If they don't take out the Demon King before the undead swarm them, they're looking at a repeat of earlier chaos. Suddenly, the warrior asks the dragon for a solid, and Sir Kim lands while the three of them bolt toward the castle. The demon guarding the castle spots them coming in hot. He tells the other demons to intercept these intruders before they can reach the castle. As the demon soldiers hustle to catch up to them, at that moment, someone douses the demons with a sticky purple goo. In the blink of an eye, boom! There's an explosion near the gates, and the dragon bounces off. Turns out Kim's got the ultimate flammable fuel inside him that blows up with just a tiny spark. Looks like Kim just pulled off an epic explosion. This way, the soldiers can't bust open the gates, and the undead are totally blocked until the fire chills out. Meanwhile, Richmond's watching the blast, and he's super mad, grinding his teeth in frustration. Staring at the dragon as it hightails it, the demon starts thinking that this might be the dragon of Stuckfit, the one that can spit fire like it's nothing, and wonders if Sloth got toasted by him. Fuming with anger, the demon general feels threatened by the dragon showing up and starts rambling about the 3 things that make undead super weak. First, they can't handle light magic. Second, sunlight totally messes with them. And third, they rot over time. Richmond figured out their weaknesses by being all holy and righteous. The second weakness is useless when it's dark, and for the last one, he sucked all the moisture out of their bodies to stop them from rotting, but now they're drier than firewood, which means they're tinder for flames. Sure, he can take the edge off damage with fire resistance, but that ain't gonna cut it against the dragon's fiery breath. A few feet from the castle, Jealousy figures they won't help the king much by barging in. They'll just turn into kindling for that dragon. So he leaves the kings back to lust and gets ready to take that dragon down. Meanwhile, the warrior duo, Angela and Edward, are fending off demon soldiers as they try to break into the castle. Right as they're about to enter, someone crashes through and blocks their way. Yup, it's the last demon general Lust who says this is where their journey ends. We get a flashback that Lust, aka Julius Deluder, is a buff dude with rippling muscles and is like an incubus or something. We're taken back 10 years when Lust and the Incubi were these mid-tier mage demons who seduced humans for energy. Since they're all about magic, they didn't need to flex on physical strength. Incubi are already dreamy guys, so they skip the whole muscle-gaining grind. Same deal for Lust. He wasn't into bulking up, but somehow ended up jacked hitting things with muscle over magic. It all kicked off a decade back. While he's drowning in his nostalgic feels about goodbyes and losses, his trip down memory lane gets wrecked by the warrior leaping at him. Lust is all mad that this dude's crashing his flashback vibes, so he hurls a giant boulder at him, but this warrior guy slices that rock like it's nothing with his holy sword. Wielding that blade, the warrior delivers the final strike, knocking the demon hard to the ground. As the demon ponders his last moments, he realizes it's kind of tragic for the strongest of the 4 great kings. Given his situation, he didn't snag hostages like arrogance and gluttony, nor did he have the overpowering might like wrath and sloth, or even the fight edge like greed. Lust also didn't roll with a killer army like jealousy, so in this one-on-one match, the warrior clearly owned it. Fast forwarding to the present, Edward tells the warrior they should bounce. Meanwhile, Lust's just lying there all helpless, thinking it's his fate to be taken down by the warrior. He lets out his final breath, mumbling apologies to his demon king. Just like that, the warrior and crew finally hit the Demon King's castle, wondering if there's a Demon King chillin' behind those doors. The warrior swings open the door and sees a little girl. Back with the dragon, it's flying over Richmond's undead army, scheming something wicked. The demon general's confused about why the dragon ain't spitting fire at him and decides to send his crew into the castle like right now. Meanwhile, the dragon's mouth is all puffed up with something, and he smashes down towards the army at lightning speed. Freaked out, the demon snaps back to reality and spots the dragon soaring at them. As Richmond preps to toss the fire-resistant spells on his army, our dude douses them in purple poison. Thinking it's poison, Richmond just cackles and makes fun of the dragon, saying it's a total joke if it thinks this stuff would work on the undead. He's all relieved, thinking he's in the clear, and the dragon's vibing with him. Just then, our bro spits fire, and the demon cracks up again, saying this little spitfire is cute, but joy turns to horror when the big blow-up happens, leaving the demon completely stunned, not even able to grasp what just went down. The fire's going bonkers from the tiniest bit of poison, causing explosions that don't stop while the dragon spills the tea that this spot is loaded with flammable fuel, roughly packing the power of 30 fire breaths. With that, the inferno spreads faster than lightning, scorching the last great king, Jealousy, to bits. Finally, Richmond's holy relic, the phylactery, goes up in flames and he gets wiped out. In the end, we catch Kim lounging all chill on top of the cart, totally unfazed by the chaos. Flames sweep across the flat fields, with the echoes of explosions ringing out as the undead army gets cooked alongside their general. Kim, now in his dragon form, wonders if this is really the end for the undead crew, checking if are packing the power of about 30 fiery bellows. With that, the flames spread faster than a TikTok trend, roasting the last royal dude in Jealousy like it's a summertime barbecue. At last, Richmond's holy relic, the phylactery, gets wrecked and he's done for. In the end, we spot Kim just chilling on top of the cart, totally unbothered, while the chaos unfolds. Flames take over the flatlands, and the boom of explosions fills the air as the undead army meets a fiery fate along with their general. Kim, now in dragon mode, is wondering if this is really the end for the undead crew. He's checking to see if, yo, is the general dead or what? Our dude ain't even sweating it, because this was super easy for him. So he's already plotting his next move to chow down on the rest of the soldiers. Big ups to his salamander skills, because he can totally cook his meal in the fire, but nah, he passes on that because they're just lifeless bodies with no skills. So he decides to snag some leftovers from the castle while he's flying around. As he strolls into the castle, he sees dead demons everywhere. Then he spots one of the 7 deadly generals, Lust, who's been taken out by the warrior, and he's kinda impressed. The warrior is living up to the hype. He busts open the door to the Demon King's room and finds the prince and the warrior squabbling, both pointing their weapons at each other. Meanwhile, the warrior's got this girl behind him like he's shielding her. Edward's all confused about what's going on, since the warrior is trying to school him on how humans and demons should chill instead of just wrecking each other. The scientist's trying to calm things down, telling them to lower their weapons. Meanwhile, Kim is like, what's the deal here? He's asking about the Demon King and who the girl is. The warrior's thinking that if he spills the beans, it could get messy, but he gets interrupted when the prince drops a bombshell. The girl hiding behind the warrior is actually the Demon King, and the warrior ditched his mission to take her out. He's thinking telling the truth could get him in trouble, but the prince's reveal stops him in his tracks like, wait, what? The warrior begs Kim to hear him out before he pulls any moves, insisting that this girl is not the Demon King. He's trying to reason, but Kim's totally lost when he hears the warrior say she didn't used to be the Demon King. The warrior spills that she's in the Demon King's body, but her soul is from another world, which Kim just finds wild. He's doing his best to convince them, claiming she's not lying thanks to his lie detection skills, proving she's keeping it real. Now our guy gets it. The Demon King has got to be the third person from Earth, Loki thinking the warrior's speaking truth. Putting the puzzle pieces together, he figures out Edward totally died once and got reborn in this world in some random dude's body. He was basically a transmigration or reincarnation of Eddie Montoya, while Kim just showed up here like, hey, it's me. So like Kim's stuck in this world, and now he's wondering, who even is the Demon King? Then it's revealed that the Demon King's body got possessed by some normal Earth human. She was just an average office worker who didn't care about social stuff, preferring to dive into her hobbies like reading and collecting military gear. So when she stepped up as the Demon King, she didn't take it seriously at all, thinking it was just some wild dream, like the stories she read back on Earth. She just figured her Demon King life was a total nightmare and started using her Earth smarts and skills in this world. This is why the Demon Kingdom blew up with success, and the balance between humans and demons got all messed up, which is why the goddess sent a warrior in the first place. But like she still can't wrap her head around how real this all is. She just knew that being the Demon King meant she'd eventually run into the warrior, just like the hero in those novels. The twist, she isn't the protagonist here. Her go-to generals got wiped out without achieving anything. And when her best general Julius fell to the warrior, she finally faced reality, hitting her with that epic fear she'd buried deep down. She spills everything to the warrior, and now all she can do is beg for mercy. After that, Kim's trying to process the warrior's words, saying, so this girl had her minions causing chaos, and now she's just surrendering because she's scared. The warrior jumps in while Kim's like, do you even buy into this otherworld stuff? The warrior's like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's legit. Our slick dude totally believes him, but he's got to act like he doesn't. The poor warrior is losing it, guaranteed the Demon King is speaking the truth, and he's breaking down, tears flowing as he remembers all the lives lost already. He wants to stop this never-ending bloodshed. Just then, Edward gives Kim a look, and he pulls out his sword, walking up to the warrior saying, it's time. While the warrior's falling apart, he's totally caught off guard by the sudden vibe shift from his brother. Edward swings his sword at him, and the warrior raises his sword to defend himself. But when the prince's sword clashes with his, it breaks into pieces. Shady Edward then goes for a stab, and the Demon King is right there behind him. A warrior's gotta be righteous just and good. These might sound the same, but sometimes they totally clash. A warrior needs to flex their way through moral dilemmas and find the best outcome. That's what he's been hustling to do. But now with Kim and Edward up to no good, they've soaked the warrior's good vibes. First off, in that village where they were cranking out weapons, the warrior ended up slaying innocent folks. At that casino, he didn't go after the bad guys, but focused on saving his homies. And finally, he ditched his mission to protect the Demon King. He kinda threw away the last shred of what made him a legit warrior. A warrior's gotta flex through those moral dilemmas and find the best outcome. That's what he's been hustling to do. But the negativity from Kim and Edward just wrecked the warrior's good nature. First up in that village where they were pumping out weapons, the warrior got caught up in slaying innocent civilians. Then at the casino, he didn't deal with the criminals, but instead was just focused on saving his friends. And last, he straight up ghosted his quest to protect the Demon King, basically tossing aside what made him a worthy warrior. Yo, breaking all the rules, dude. That means the warrior ain't righteous anymore, just a shadow of himself. So he ain't a warrior no more. Blood's dripping from Eddie's sword as he goes after his bro. The warrior and the Demon King. Eddie hits him with the truth. He stopped being a warrior the second he decided to let the Demon King live. With that, he's out of the game. That holy sword of the goddess. It's just another average blade now. The warrior tries to drop some last words, but just collapses before he can spit them out. The whole scene is just chilling. The Saints can't believe what they just saw, asking the prince how he could take out a warrior and rush over to try and patch him up. But Kim holds her back while she's trying to save him. And before she can do a thing, our dude devours her. Then we flip to Edward's memory where he's plotting to take out the warrior. They just need to smash this last condition. But before they can bounce on their plan, they decide they gotta deal with the priestess. Kim is thrown off because he thought Eddie had some feelings for her, but plot twist, he kinda does. But he can't let a healer roam free because she might bring the warrior back from the dead. If the warrior ain't a warrior anymore, then he's the new first prince and Eddie's gotta wave goodbye to his crown, which means he can't hold up his end of the deal with Kim. The Saint's healing game is way stronger than anyone thinks. And there was this time a saint from back in the day healed what looked like hamburger meat. For real, that's like miracle status. The prince tells him she's basically unkillable. So if they're going to take her out, they got to smash her body for good. They start brainstorming, and the prince gives him a sly look, reminding him they've got a beast that can turn into a dragon and swallow someone whole, talking about Kim. With a wicked grin, Kim's like, nah bro, I can do that without the transformation. Eddie's relieved to have him in the crew because that monster side kind of freaks him out, and he's worried the Saints will make a break for it even after Kim gets her. But Kim's like, chill, that ain't happening. Cause whatever he swallows don't end up in his stomach. It just vanishes. He's not sure where it goes, but it's impossible for anyone to claw their way out unless it's attached to him. Back in the present, Edward throws the question at Kim if he's down to chow on the Demon King's body, since he doesn't want to leave it lying around. But Kim's like, nah, cause the Demon King's skills ain't worth it, and it's better to keep the body as proof in case the goddess shows up. Edward's all, how's she gonna grant our wish though? But suddenly the room lights up like crazy. Kim gets teleported somewhere else and sees this cube that looks like a system. He's like, is that the goddess? The system confirms, and our dude wonders if this is her real form since her statue doesn't look anything like this. Then the system spills the tea that this interface is just a version of what their subconscious thinks she's like. But the current subject is so out of bounds that it can't even pick a proper avatar. He asks what the goddess actually is, and the system spills that the name goddess means a mega organizational design and developmental ecosystem supervisory system. It runs the whole show, handling the creation and upkeep of worlds. Its main gig is managing skills and status, creating monsters, and overseeing soul reincarnation. Kim's mind is blown. He realizes the goddess ain't a real being, but just a system, and starts thinking, is this how a real goddess is supposed to be? He's curious about why he got yanked into this world, to which the system explains that Earth's all snug next to this world, and sometimes glitches pull people over like the prince and the Demon King. Next up, he asks why the monsters here look like legendary creatures, or those from Earth, and the goddess tells him they were based on creatures from his adjacent world. Then he's like, so do you have a problem with us taking out the warrior? But shockingly, the system's all chill saying it ain't like that. Kim's super surprised and asks if he can get a wish for taking down the Demon King, adding that him and the prince ended up killing off the warrior and the Saints along the way. The system's aware of the slaughter, but Kim's wondering why it don't seem mad about losing its chosen one. The goddess explains it doesn't feel anything, just like a video game. Doesn't care if you save or load. It goes on to say if it had a preference, it would have appreciated Kim's moves. While he's still in shock, the system reveals that the whole warrior system was meant to balance humans and demons, and to help both societies grow through competition. But man, the results flipped the script. After launching the warrior system, both human and demon worlds hit a standstill, barely any change besides a few. Thanks to this whole mess, the goddess can drop the warrior system, meaning there ain't gonna be any more warriors for either race. Kim takes a second to process this, and figures one race could totally wipe out the other without competition. He can make a wish, since he bagged the Demon King, mentioning how he and the prince ended up taking out the warrior and the Saints along the way. Even though the system knows all this, Kim is curious why it isn't all upset about losing its chosen one. The goddess spills that she doesn't feel emotions, kind of like how a video game doesn't care about saving or loading. She adds that if the system actually had feelings, it would have respected Kim's grind. Our guy is still in shock when the system lays down the truth about how the whole warrior system was meant to balance humans and demons set up to help both societies level up through competition. But like that, totally backfired. After dropping the warrior system, both human and demon societies just sat there all stagnant, barely any changes besides a few minor ones. But thanks to this drama, the goddess got to pull the plug on the warrior system, meaning no more warriors for either side. Hearing that Kim figures that one side could just wipe out the other and competition won't even matter, decide to scrap the warrior system, saying, from now on, there won't be any warriors for either side. Hearing this, Kim figures that one race is just going to wipe the other out completely, leaving no competition. And the system's like, yo, humankind ain't just one race, it's a whole squad. Humans, elves, dwarves, hybrids, and lizard peeps too. So until now, these crews were all buddy-buddy in alliances. But with the demons MIA, they're about to start throwing hands. Kim's finally feeling stoked after getting all the deets and decides it's time to hit up the goddess about that wish for the quest peeps. The dude asks the system if it can just zap him back to Earth. Kim straight up asks to be sent back, but the goddess is like, nah, not happening. She points out that it's against the rules to send someone who's already causing a ruckus in this realm. Kim's wondering if he's actually affecting the world by just being here, and it turns out he can't just bounce back to Earth like that. Realizing he needs to find his own way back, he asks the system for a DIY route to Earth. While it processes, the system tells him to hang tight because Edward Grand Conantine's browsing the info. When he hears this, Kim's feeling chill because now that he's got a potential way back sorted, he's ready to level up and become the baddest creature around. After snacking on a dragon, that's just one creature out of millions. Kim thinks no matter how tough a dragon is, some other beast or a massive army could take it down. Planning to find more monsters on par with a dragon, Kim wants to snag a creature that's next level. He asks the goddess about beings that can transcend their physical vibes while no one else can touch them. The system spills the tea that such creatures are real and downloads the info straight into Kim's noggin. As all this intel floods into his brain, he learns about these legendary creatures from Earth's myths that are still in the works because Elmwood's culture and tech can't keep up. With the power to summon one of these beasts with his wish, Kim's torn between powers like traveling at 400 light speed, teleporting, or creating physical forms. All those dope abilities have him hyped, but Kim decides to hold off on his wish. He reminds himself that these creatures haven't been unleashed in this world yet because Elmwood can't handle them, which means they'll eventually be able to stand up against them. If he goes lazy and reaches the top too fast, he risks letting other creatures catch up to him. But being the ultimate predator means no one can touch him, and he'll feel invincible chilling at the top. Plus, he's got a bunch of other creatures still to devour. Once he's munched on them all, he can snag those epic skills later on. Anyway, Kim tells the system he'll collect his reward for taking down the Demon King later, just checking if that's cool. The goddess reassures him that the reward's just on pause, and the system will process it later when he asks. After that, Kim wonders when he can get back to his current self, and the system's like, you can bounce whenever, dude. It then asks if he wants to wait for his crew while he's making wishes, but he decides he's going to head back before Edward. Eventually, the prince shows up back in his current state, and Kim's there to welcome him. Edward's wiping his tears, totally caught off guard, because he didn't know the goddess would show up in her own form. Listening to this, Kim figures he's talking about Angela the Saints. Since the goddess is supposed to look like the ideal crush from their mind, Kim then asks if Edward feels bad about getting her killed, and the prince is but he shakes off the sadness pretty quick and asks Kim if he's curious what he wished for. The prince reveals he asked for future knowledge, but Kim cuts in smirking and claims Edward must have the tips on how to send him back to Earth. Chill about it, the prince agrees and adds that he can't let a monster like Kim run loose in the kingdom he's about to rule, saying he's gotten way too powerful for him to take down. Kim, super keen on getting back to Earth, asks the prince how he can make that happen. The prince thinks the demon army is going to bust through the Demon King's gates any second, so he'll fill him in on the way. It's then dropped that the Demon King's big plan as the four great kings spilled is to totally revamp the demon army, changing up command, rolling out new weapons and battle tactics, teaching the importance of supplies, and shaking up war. When a higher-ranked leader bites it, the next in line takes charge. Turns out all those ideas came from reading some military strategy books. Because of this, the demon army went through a massive overhaul, boosting its combat skills like crazy. They could endanger humanity's survival even without the Demon King or his generals backing them. The scene shifts to the Demon King's castle, where human soldiers are seen because Elmwood can't handle these creatures yet, meaning one day they'll be able to step up to them. If he doesn't keep his game tight, reaching the top too soon will just make him lazy, which would let other creatures catch up to him eventually. But if he locks in as the ultimate predator, that means no creature or being can touch him, thinking he'll be straight up invincible on top. Plus, he's still got tons of creatures to devour, and after scoffing down all of those, he can snag that awesome skill later. Anyway, Kim tells the system that he's going to get his reward for taking down the Demon King some other time, just checking if it's all chill. The goddess affirms that the reward's temporarily on hold, and that the system will revert to processing it whenever he asks later. After that, Kim wonders when he can bounce back to his current self, and the system says he can peep out anytime he wants. It questions if he's going to wait for his buddy since he's busy making a wish right now, but our dude decides to just head back before Edward. Later, the prince pops back into his current state and gets a warm welcome from his buddy Kim. Drying his tears, Edward's surprised because he didn't realize the goddess would take her form. Hearing this, Kim figures he's talking about Angela the Saints. Since the goddess is meant to look like the subconscious ideal form, Kim asks Edward if he feels bad for getting her killed. And the prince's fist tightens as he confesses he regrets every single second. But he bounces back from the sorrow and asks Kim if he wants to know what he wished for. When the prince says he asked for future knowledge, Kim interrupts and slyly claims that Edward must know how to get him back to Earth. Chill about it. The prince agrees and insists he can't let a beast like him run rampant in the world he's about to rule, adding that he's become too powerful to kill. Kim, who's super dead set on going back to Earth, asks the prince how he can pull that off. The prince responds he's got a feeling the demon army is going to break through the demon king's gate any minute, so he'll fill him in on their journey. It's then revealed that the Demon King's big scheme, according to the 4 great kings, is a complete overhaul of the demon army, spreading out command, rolling out new weapons and tactics, teaching the lowdown on supplies, and reforming war rituals. When a higher-ranked leader kicks the bucket, the next subordinate takes command. It turns out all those strategies came from reading military tactics. Because of all this, the demon army got a massive upgrade, boosting their battle skills dramatically. They were ready to threaten humanity's existence, even without the Demon King or his top dogs. The scene cuts to the Demon King's castle, where human soldiers are firing arrows at the demon army. This feels like it goes on forever. While one of the dudes gets taken out, the human soldier is like, how can I possibly take on this huge demon army with those weird weapons I've seen? He's kind of thinking it might be the end for humanity, but then out of nowhere, someone starts fighting back against the demon squad, and it looks like some reinforcements just showed up. Suddenly, the general soldier spots that someone popped open the castle's front gate and screams at his buddies to shut it. One of the guys tells him it's the Knight of the Third Order. The soldier remembers that this order is full of fancy rich kids who are totally useless. Just then, the aristocratic knights come charging in on their horses, and one of them decides it's his time to shine. Too bad for him, he gets taken out by a demon's weapon. Just as the soldiers are about to slam it shut, they get ambushed by the demons. The general soldier is like, well, we're toast, and resigns himself to the fact that humanity is about to bite the dust. That's when the soldiers spot something crazy up in the sky, and freak out when they realize it's a giant dragon. It turns out to be Edward Grant Cotton, and Mr. Kim swooping in to save the next scene takes us to the king's palace, where the soldier is hyped to say Prince Edward is back from his epic mission to take out the Demon King and fought off the whole army. Everyone is totally stoked about the prince's awesome moves, but the king is just standing there in shock, wondering how the prince managed to wipe out the entire demon horde. That's when the soldier spills the beans that the prince rolled in on a dragon. But the soldier promises he's not just messing around and admits he saw the whole thing with his own eyes, and it was epic. After realizing the truth is undeniable and seeing everyone hyping up the prince, calling him the hero of all humans, the king thinks that if he keeps questioning the prince's victory, people are going to doubt his judgment. He finally gives in and acknowledges his sons. The king thinks maybe it's true that Edward delivered the final hit on the Demon King since the dude's got mad skills. But the deaths of the warriors and the saints don't make sense to him. He starts to wonder if the prince was the one who offed them, because he would have done the same. He thinks it's only natural for Edward to take out the warrior, and he starts to question why the prince didn't get punished for his actions. So, by taking out the warrior, Edward's committed a sin that shouldn't be forgiven. But the prince doesn't seem to have faced any heavenly consequences. The praise he's getting is off the charts way more than any chosen warrior from the temple. Those who were backing the princess are now all about the prince. The more the king thinks about it, the more it drives him crazy. But he starts to think he might have been too hard on the kid, figuring that the prince has changed a lot. It turns out that after the prince came back with a bang, he didn't head straight to Santo Almaru. Nope, he flew around the kingdom mopping up the last of the demon army. This made the aristocrats who used to hate on him now sing his praises as a hero. Fast forward, Mr. Kim and Edward are just chilling with zero cares in the world. Meanwhile, the prince drops that the king is kind of sketchy about Kim and made a big impression when they first met. But our dude, who doesn't care about fame or glory, checks in with the prince to make sure he's solid on the seating arrangement. Edward's like, yeah, I'm good. I got this straight from the goddess herself. The king feels the panic rising inside as he wonders if it's right to think the prince is different after the quest. Just then, one of the soldiers asks for the prince's sword, and Edward hands it over. The soldier's mind goes back to the king's order to take down the prince if he reaches for his sword. Meanwhile, Prince Edward kneels in front of his dad, asking how he's doing. The king then asks what the prince learned during his journey, and the prince says he's come to understand the sacrifices his dad has made for the people and realizes the weight of the crown he wears. While the king stands there speechless, the prince gets back up, and his dad snaps at him, saying he didn't tell him to stand. With a cheeky grin, the prince uses his light magic and calls his sword back. A chill of fear hits the king as he asks his son what he's doing, and the prince reveals that and people are going to question his wisdom. Finally, the king's giving props to his son's epic achievements in front of everyone. Then he's like, wait, can the prince even be known as a hero for humankind since he's basically a mini-me of his dad? The king's thinking, maybe it's true that Edward landed the killing blow on the Demon King because his skills are legit. But the whole situation with the warriors and saints not adding up is bugging him. So the king figures the prince must have taken them out just like he would have done. With that logic, he's tripping over why the prince didn't get slapped with punishment for executing his plan. It's all about loyalty and devotion to the goddess. He can't wrap his head around why the warriors and the saints died. The king thinks the prince must have taken them down, considering he would have done the same, thinking it's totally natural that Edward took out the warrior. The king wonders why the prince didn't get in trouble for pulling off his plan. Being in the royal family is supposed to be a reward for loyalty to the goddess. So by taking out the warrior, Edward totally pulled a sin move that should be unforgivable. But the prince seems to be chilling with no sign of punishment from above. The praise he's getting is way more than any chosen warrior from the temple could dream of. And now, those who are all about the princess are totally switching teams to support the prince. No matter how hard the king tries, the prince's game is worth more than any chosen warrior from the temple. And everyone who backed the princess has flipped to support the prince now. No matter how much the king tries to fathom it, he just finds it totally whack. But at the end of the day, the king finally comes to terms with the reality of it all and accepts his son's big win. He's thinking he might have been too rough on the kid, believing the prince is really leveled up. Turns out, after the prince made his grand comeback, he didn't head back to Santo Almaru. Instead, he was all around the kingdom wiping the floors with the leftover demon army, turning the aristocrats who were once hating on him into adoring fans. A few days later in Sto Almaru, Prince Edward gets a hero's welcome from the crowd. While everyone else is busy getting ready for the show, Kim and Edward are just doing their own thing, like they don't have a care in the world. In the meantime, the prince drops that the king's got his eyes on Kim and probably had an impression when they first met. But our dude doesn't really care about chasing fame and glory. He just asks the prince if he's sure about the whole seating plan, and Edward's like, for sure, since he got the scoop straight from the goddess. After that, Kim dips, and the prince wishes him good vibes. When the bell chimes, Prince Edward gets the royal escort into the palace, locking eyes with the king. The king looks like he's losing it inside, wondering if he was right to think the prince is different after all this. Just then, one of the soldiers asks for the prince's sword, and Edward reaches for it, handing it over like a boss. But the soldier remembers the king's command to take out the prince if he goes for his sword. While Prince Edward drops to his knees in front of his dad, asking how he's holding up. The king then asks him what lessons he learned on his journey. The prince responds that he's learned how much the king sacrificed for his people, and finally gets the weight of that crown he's been wearing. While the king is left speechless, the prince stands up, and his dad suddenly snaps yelling at him, saying he did. While Prince Edward kneels before his father and asks how he's doing. The king then asks him what he learned from his journey, and the prince hits him with the fact that he's learned about the sacrifices the king made for his people, and gets the real deal about the weight of the crown he wears. While the king's all silent, the prince stands up, and his dad goes off on him, saying that he did. No way, he's ordering him to get up. With a smug smirk, the prince zaps his light magic and grabs his sword. He tells his dad he's figured out what's up from here on out, adding that the king doesn't have to step up and carry the crown's weight anymore. The king feels a chill and questions his son's move, and the prince spills the tea that he's taking his throne by drawing his sword. Freaked out, the king starts shouting at the prince, while the soldiers close in on Edward, weapons ready to strike. Out of nowhere, Edward unleashes his light magic, summoning a blade of light armor and a light shield. When one of the soldiers tries to stop him, the prince does not hold back and brutally takes him down, leaving none alive, just chopping off heads. The old man's freaking out and shouting treason, realizing he totally underestimated this guy and thinking, this dude's gone all rogue. But the king's got this feeling he saw it coming, and he's already got his top assassins on standby. So he hits the button to call his assassins, but no one's answering, and the old dude's spinning around yelling at his guys to get reinforcements. Oddly, he spots something off about his crew as they start snickering, like they're all possessed or something. Totally scared out of his mind, the king's left confused. The scene flips to Kim, who's chatting about all the crazy creatures he's devoured, and gluttony was straight up the weirdest vibe. Glitty was this parasite that didn't need a host to chill, and was like a mashup of different beings, all stuck together in one mind. Crazy, right? He surprisingly had the power to control all those beings, even if they were split apart. Kim had a tough time managing those parasitic powers. But after munching on the entire demon city of Stuckfit, controlling them became way easier as he leveled up his skills. Plus, this dude can mess with his host's feelings and wipe their memories after infecting them. Once he spilled the tea to the prince about his new trick, he came up with the scheme to brainwash the king's crew. While Kim's down to do it, he warns that the king might catch on. Edward's like, nah, it's gonna be chill, saying all he needs to do is jazz up their frontal lobes and make them feel all fuzzy when he pulls off something dope. Right then, our guy starts infecting the palace by messing with the water supply, spreading his eggs just like that demon did. Fast forward to the bloody scene where Edward walks in steady, with his sword exposing all the old man's dirty work about killing his mom, sending assassins after him, and sending Angela to the temple. Confronting his dad, he wants to grill him about a bunch of stuff, but decides to save it for later. In that moment, Prince Edward plunges the sword straight into his father's chest. Blood's pouring out from the old man's body and mouth, and he's just hoping there's a special spot in hell set aside for his son, taking his last breath. The prince yanks the sword out, and the king is done for as he tumbles from his throne. Meanwhile, the heartless son grabs the king's cape just as someone crashes into the palace. Turns out, it's a dude who met his end at Kim's hands. After that, our guy tells the prince it's all over, and Edward successfully eliminates all the trash in the palace. Filled with pride, he places the crown on his head and sits on the throne, saying, "There's nothing holding him back now." The crowd starts cheering for their new king chilling on the throne with his dad's blood all over him. Later on in the palace, King Edward seems to be having a convo with his dead brother, knowing what he's got to say. Turns out Edward's wish from the goddess was to score knowledge in its purest form. With that, he could tell Sir Kim where all the folks he had to off were hiding. Among that knowledge were the last words of his brother that he never finished. The warrior's voice warns him not to overstep. The prince stands up from the throne and tells the warrior it's too late and he should have warned him. Before teaming up with that monster, he orders the warrior to bounce and snaps back to reality, casting magic to crush the warrior's illusion. Thinking about what's next, Edward says the world the warrior used to know is straight up gone. There are no fools left clinging to the charade of humanity, prepping for the threats ahead. Edward knows he's got to pay the price since he got here thanks to that beast. To send Kim back to Earth, the prince figures he'll need the kings of elves, dwarves, hybrids, and lizardmen. Edward reveals he'll offer their heads at the shrine sealed up in the temple's dungeon, and that's going to spark an era of war and chaos. Next scene's with Kim, who's scribbling about how the prince took down the evil king and snagged the throne, ruling the kingdom like a boss for ages, while our guy's calling it the end of part one of Fantasy World Food Travels. He closes the book, and Edward's curious, asking what he's been writing. Turns out our boy's planning to drop a book when he gets back to Earth and takes out Eddie's old crew living life under a new name, saying he won't be making dough like before, so he's gonna sell this book. Kim goes on to say, since it's about him munching on stuff in a fantasy world, he's calling it Fantasy World Food Travels, but the king's like, dude, that title's not gonna sell. He suggests a cooler title, The More I Eat, the Stronger I Get. Kim, not caring about the title, is like, I'm hiring a ghostwriter anyway since I'm good at eating, but total trash at writing. Meanwhile, Edward asks him what he'll do if the book flops. Our guy smirks and says he's lived it all firsthand, but not exactly a pro at writing. Meanwhile, Edward hits him up asking what'll happen if the book flops. Our dude just smirks and says he's been through it all firsthand. Yo, the deets of this story are gonna be lit. Kim's all hyped thinking his book's gonna be a total blockbuster since it's gonna drop as a sick trilogy of fantasy flicks. But the king's just shaking his head, all worried, talking about how they're gonna send Eddie back to Earth. Before Eddie can even speak up, Kim's already vibing that they gotta make an offering. He's like, so can we offer up a head from each race? Edward pulls out some papers and says they ain't just going after the Demon King this time. He explains they can roll with an elite squad for each king, but their heirs will totally want revenge and start coming for the humans, forming alliances to invade. We've got the elves, who are straight up legends with bows and magic. Then you got the dwarves, whose blacksmith skills are next level awesome. And don't even sleep on the hybrids and lizard folks. They're way stronger than humans. Edward's like, even if we got the numbers, we ain't ready for them. If they team up, the king's gonna be in deep trouble. But for now, the king's all about keeping it chill and consolidating his power so they can throw down against other species. He hands Kim a stack of papers, and Kim's like, wait, are you making me do your dirty work? That's when Eddie's like, nah, dude, it's a proposal, check it out. Kim flips the papers and his face lights up. It's a treasure map with all kinds of dope spots. Happy that his bro digs the gift, the king, being the rightful heir, makes Kim the top secret royal investigator. Kim's shocked, like, does the kingdom even have a job like this? Edward laughs it off and says he totally made it up, just like he made the secret guardian night gig. He tells Kim he's got the freedom to roam and still hold some power. Kim's feeling it's a sweet deal. He gets to roam free with a treasure map, and in return, take down the king's enemies. As he's about to bounce for his mission, Eddie's like, dude, I'm holding my coronation next year, so you gotta be back by then. Don't let anyone start saying the two heroes who took out the Demon King are beefing. With that, Kim dips out thinking about where to kick things off, determined to use this info wisely. But one thing's for sure, he knows he'll be way stronger by the time he wraps it up. Meanwhile, one of the guards asks the prince if he's cool with Kim being gone, since he was the baddest warrior around, and without him, it's kinda sketch. But Edward just shrugs it off, saying it's dumb, and that's why he's got Kim around to prevent stuff like that from happening. The dude chilling above the prince's room for protection is actually the head assassin. He runs the Royal Assassins crew, which is a top-notch squad working straight for the king. The real question is how Prince Edward managed to get the Royal Assassins under his control after taking out the former king. Turns out the old King Edward IV was planning to pass the Royal Assassins to Edward. So, while the first prince takes the throne, the second prince is out there as a chancellor and head of the assassins taking out enemies from the shadows. That was the king's game plan. But because the first prince was all about that goody two-shoes life, he became the warrior instead. The king's plan kind of flopped and they only got halfway through it. Somehow the assassins got brainwashed to serve both the ruling king and Prince Edward. The catch was that the prince had to inherit something from the king. The king wanted him to get the signet ring of the assassin leader, but Edward ended up taking the crown instead. Just like that, Edward got the king's stuff, and the assassins now had a new boss. Luckily, Edward completely took over the forces that roll into the kingdom, plus the royal guards, all thanks to those brainwashing parasites. Fast forward to now, the prince is thinking that with Kim gone, those parasites' powers are going to start fading too. He plans to win everyone in the kingdom over before that happens. And like they always say, what brings humans together is profit pleasure and guild. The prince smirks, plotting something shady. The scene switches back to Kim, wondering if the full-bladed armor he got from the prince is going to attract too much attention. But this armor has become his signature look, not exactly a stealth investigator vibe. So he orders a new set of armor and is pretty stoked about his new style. Leaving all that political drama behind, he bounces from the palace, ready for some adventure. Kim's now known as the prince's ride or die and the slayer of the Demon King. But on Earth, he was just a notorious criminal wanted like crazy across the globe. Always on the run from the law and secret organizations, he didn't have many normal hobbies. Sports and video games, nah, that was never really his scene. Ended up spilling some serious tea about his secrets, but he just couldn't let them go, which led to him losing his second and third identities. Turns out this monster's fave hobby is reading. He's all about them fiction stories that kick off and wrap up in just one book. At first he kinda had to roll with it, but then he totally fell head over heels for reading. Honestly, who would have thought a savage monster would be into fiction? Too bad this world is lagging in culture and only the rich folks can have books. Lucky for our dude, he can snag some from the prince even if they're kinda trashy. But don't lose hope, because even if no one's writing dope stories, there are some sick tales being told out there. Later, a lady starts explaining how humans used to share knowledge through stories and songs before they figured out writing. She totally persuades the crowd to keep those dope stories alive, taught by the wise old townsfolk, and encourages them all to join the bard school. Inspired by that, a girl named Felina Greenmouth decides she wants to be a bard. But later, she kinda regrets that move. In a twist, she ends up being a wandering minstrel, calling herself a total fool for believing in that fake bard school. While Felina isn't thrilled with her life choices, she figures people just want to hear epic adventures instead of the chill tales of everyday heroes. She wraps it up thinking that minstrels are just formal clowns dishing out exaggerated stories, and that's not why she wanted to get into this gig in the first place. Regretting her life choices, Felina heads into a bar in Storfabro. Hearing all the chatter, she spots a small group of mercs and an adventurer who's none other than our guy Kim. Then she sees this cloaked figure and assumes he's just some drunk, but when she notices the slick armor, she figures he might be mixed up in some bad stuff, so she thinks it's best to steer clear. After that, she decides to perform for the adventurer and the mercenaries. Figuring these two seem to have some beef, Felina picks a song, carefully knowing one wrong pick might spark a brawl, and she'd have to kiss her tips goodbye. But it looks like she's got a little trick up her sleeve when she announces she'll be singing about the prince who took down the demon dragon and the knight who faced a dragon. As soon as she spills this, the mercs turn their heads, saying this girl actually knows about hero stories. While she belts it out, Felina thinks this song is a guaranteed cash cow and peeks at the crowd who seem to be vibing with her. But soon enough, the poor girl starts getting over the same old tune. Just when it's about to hit its peak, she knows her earnings depend on this. She sings about how the prince felt intense sorrow when he witnessed his warrior bro bite the dust. Out of nowhere, right in the middle of the jam, a merc snaps and grabs a dude at the bar, calling him a smug jerk. Felina freaks out at the chaos, realizing the merc obviously has a death wish, because that dude's the adventurer, Kim. Meanwhile, our guy is just smirking. A bulked-up mercenary asks him if he finds the prince's story funny, and throws shade, calling him a filthy traitor to the kingdom. The other mercs start joking about it, saying he deserves it for grinning like a creep. As she tries to keep her flow, Felina wonders if it's about to be 4 mercs versus 1 adventurer, assuming the mercs would totally win. She thinks about singing some hype mercenary feats next to hype them up and open their wallets. Suddenly, she hears a commotion as Kim twists the merc's arm and slams him down. While the other mercs rush in to help, their buddy Kim is throwing punches like there's no tomorrow. Meanwhile, Felina is freaking out and scared for her life. She dashes out of the bar. She thinks this is nuts and that she better bounce before she gets dragged into this mess. But honestly, Felina's instincts were on point, way smarter than anyone else's in Santa Fabro. The scene then flips back to the bar, where Kim is still cracking up about the song that talked about warrior strength giving power to the prince, and just can't stop laughing at the thought that the dude was in. Someone walks in and tells Kim to chill with the violence in such a gruesome way. Stepping up, she pulls off her cloak and tells Kim to ease up on the weak. The armored chick introduces herself as Paladin Pure Creed and makes it clear she won't stand for this, looking a bit tipsy. Turns out she's a paladin who strolls over to Kim as he checks out the insignia of the goddess city on her clothes, all covered in dirt and grime. Remembering that the prince dropped some info about this place, he recalls that the paladins are one of the city's big power players. It's revealed that this is the city of the goddess, kind of modeled after Vatican City on Earth, where a bunch of superhuman beings hang. One of its major power players is none other than the saints who were with Kim on his last adventure. The boy narrates that just then someone rolls in and tells Kim to quit the violence and chill out. Stepping up, she throws off her cloak and tells Kim to stop messing with the weak. The armored girl introduces herself as Paladin Pure Creed, saying she's not about to let that slide and looks kinda tipsy. Looks like this paladin strolls over to Kim while he notices her threads are pretty gross, but has the City of the Goddess emblem on them. Remembering some stuff the prince mentioned, he's reminded that paladins are one of the city's big powers. Turns out it's the City of the Goddess, kinda like a mini Vatican City on Earth, where tons of superhuman beings hang out. One of its key powers is definitely the saints who were with Kim on his last adventure. The boy narrates that this skeleton is basically loaded with some dope enchanted steel from the temple. She's got super tight muscles, and her eyesight and reflexes are way beyond what normal humans can do, which totally makes her a certified human weapon. But making a saintess takes a crazy amount of time and resources. Even with all the donations and offerings from everywhere, they can only whip up one saint every decade. It's like the price of a custom-made weapon, kinda like a warrior. This is why they created paladins. It's a smart way to pump out superhumans made by the goddess city. A paladin is just a regular human souped up with magic and blessings. Unlike a saint, creating a paladin only costs about 1 out of 200 of what a saintess demands. And they take only 2 out of 5 times that a saintess needs to get ready for battle. Once they got the system down, the city can churn out around 12 paladins at once. But let's be real, their performance kinda sucks compared to a saint. It's like a saint is a sleek modern tank, while paladins are those old crummy mass-produced ones. Even so, humans still have the upper hand in a brawl against tanks. Doesn't matter if they're old or new. As the paladin strides towards Kim, who's got a guy in a chokehold, she's looking super weak next to a warrior or a saintess, and he thinks he could take her down easily. But he shuts those thoughts down, not wanting to mess with the goddess city too soon. He lets the guy go as he bolts off and asks her if she's feeling good now. The paladin's all flustered, saying she didn't think it would go down like that, since the bullies usually aren't keen on listening to her. But our dude clarifies that she's got the whole situation twisted because he was just handling a threat since those guys came after him. He's shocked, and the paladin totally turns bright red, while Kim just drops that what she did was a pretty lame clown act one he wouldn't pay for. As he's dusting himself off, Paladin walks away embarrassed, ordering another beer to dodge the awkwardness. After that, Kim bounces out of the bar for his meeting since he's had enough downtime. It's revealed that the county of Fabro is one of those places that didn't get wrecked bad by the Demon King's invasion because it had 0 strategic value. At the time, the Demon King had a plan, focusing on wrecking key spots and immobilizing enemies. The county of Fabro was low on skills and had a small population, so the Demon King didn't see it as a threat, but everything flipped after the war. Refugees from nearby places flooded into the county, boosting the workforce. Mercenaries who made it out also chilled in the untouched area to rest. With the demand sky high, the economy blew up with new restaurants and hotels, and the town hit its first wave of prosperity. But not all changes are good, because now the county's got this whack class system due to all the outsiders popping up. The lowest tier are the refugees who rolled in with just the clothes on their backs, while the middle class is made up of the original Fabro peeps. Up top are the mercenaries who are major trouble right now. They strut around the streets of Fabro like they own the place, thinking they're the reason the economy's booming. They tackle every problem with force or cash, and there ain't any folks who should be stopping them. The county of Fabro only cares about itself and stuffing its face. They couldn't give a flip about public order or society. It's just how Fabro rolls nowadays. The prince's royal assassin lays everything out for Kim and asks him when he's going to make a move. Our guy tells him he could do it now, but he's told to wait 30 minutes. Deciding to give him a heads up when it's time, Kim steps onto the street and halts after catching a convo. A mercenary holding onto a guy is shouting, asking who the jerk is that dared challenge the Crimson Gale mercenaries. The dude turns out to be the one Kim let go earlier in the bar. As he checks out the scene, he figures it's time to speed up his plan. The mercenary, who seems to be ramping up his noise, remembers he hates dealing with annoyances like this. But if he doesn't handle this mess, his crew is going to look down on him. He guesses that only one person made it out in a 4-to-1 brawl, which means whoever it is packs a serious punch. The mercenary looks a bit shaken and thinks the guy won't show up if they intimidate him with their numbers. He decides to hype up his crew by calling the guy a coward and closing it off with drinks. Taking a deep breath, he starts yelling in bravado, but gets interrupted when a drunk guy rolls up and tells him to zip it. The drunk guy mumbles that this is Santo Fabro, their city, and it's not a spot for an outsider like him to be strutting around. While the drunkard gives him a scare for a moment, the mercenary comes up with a plan to wrap up this drama with his fool and back away. He tells his crew to teach the drunk dude a lesson. Following their boss's orders, they gear up to make sure that the drunk idiot won't talk trash ever again. Out of nowhere, an arrow zings straight into the guy's chest, and he drops like a sack, causing the mercenary to freak out, yelling that he never told them to kill him. Suddenly, they hear the locals talking trash about the mercenaries for killing a dude, saying they can't let thugs like them run wild on their streets anymore. The voices just keep echoing, demanding their city back from these mercs. Confused, the merc realizes they're totally done for, while the wasted guy, shot by the arrow, grins like a beast, because it turns out to be Kim. We jump to Kim's flashback, where we see Prince Edward, the true heir of the sick kingdom of Canine, calling out Count Fabro like he's a total loser, and spills the tea on how Fabro used to be one of the hottest counties until his grandpa ran the show. But just 2 generations later, the whole place has gone down the drain, like thinking you gotta act grown after losing your folks when you were super young. The Count dude just hit 50 this year, but his brain's stuck at 12. The prince then throws shade, calling him an idiot, and decides he should be the first to bite it. Kim's then like, wait, I thought Edward was just sloshed when he said all that? But checking out the county for himself totally proved the prince was spot on. Shaking off his flashback, Kim rustles through the bushes and thinks only the center of the county, Santo Fabro, has actually leveled up. The outskirts are straight up Slum City. There's no squad to back up the locals, so it's basically a hunting ground for wild beasts and crazies. That's why it's the perfect gig for a monster like Kim, who spends his days hunting critters by the river's woods and mountains. At night, he trades monster guts at the Adventurers Guild, and with that cash, he vibes to the music of minstrels at the bar. Living like this for 2 weeks, our dude thinks those days were some chill, peaceful times of total mayhem for him. Some peeps might say he's wasting his time, but with a year left till he bounces back to the palace. This was crucial. Then he skips off to his main mission, leaving the massive forest while unlocking hella abilities. Once in a while, he's still grateful for the 2 freaks who hooked him up with dope samples, the parasite and the dinosaur beast. Thanks to them, he could flex his abilities like a boss. At first, though, when he chowed down on the dragon and the troll, he had no clue how OP he was getting since he scored a ton of powers in no time. So to see what he could really do, he put himself to the test in the wild for 2 weeks. After leaving the bar, Kim rolls to the meetup spot where he hooks up with the prince's dude, the royal assassin. Skills in the wild for 2 weeks to see what he can whip up with his talents. Earlier, after leaving the bar, Kim heads to the meetup spot where he chills with the prince's agent, the royal assassin, who spills the beans on the prince's master plan. Once he wraps his head around it, Kim figures the prince aims to totally swap out the lords. He thinks if there's chaos when they switch things up, the monsters will level up too, which is sick for him. The assassin asks when he's going to make his move, saying this crazy riot city is easy peasy for an assassination. That's when the assassin fires an arrow straight at the wasted guy, who's actually Kim himself. Just as twisted as he is, Kim knows he needs the crowd on his side to stir up drama. With a bunch of people backing him, he just has to change his voice and play dead. First, he switches his voice to that of the Saintess, trying to sound like a young woman, and yells out claiming the mercs killed a dude, and they're going to take Santo Fabro. Then he flips to sound like an old dude who totally saw something back on Earth and says, they can't let thugs like these run wild anymore. Third, he switches to the voice of the woman and yells like he's about to lose it, claiming the mercenaries whacked a dude and are taking over Santo Fabro. Then he switches his voice to a middle-aged dude's. Lastly, he uses a dragon's voice to warn the Fabro peeps to rise up and take Santo Fabro back from the mercs. Our dude gives himself mad props for pulling this off so slick. And lastly, he uses the dragon's voice to warn the citizens of Fabro to rise up and take Santo Fabro back from the mercs. Our guy's patting himself on the back for pulling this off so well. But wait, it doesn't stop there. They cranked up the people's fighting spirit by tainting the water supply. Soon enough, chaos reigns as the citizens jump the mercs while Kim kicks back, relishing his masterpiece from above. Later at the palace, Prince Edward reads out loud about the mayhem in Santo Fabro, which kicked off trying to boot the mercs but lit the fire of rage in the people. The citizens started booting out anyone who looked sketchy and going wild. And poor Count Fabro caught some serious smoke in the riot, while the prince is secretly hyped and thanks Kim for cleaning up his mess perfectly. Rallied up citizens, refugees, and mercenaries to go wild, and Lord Count Fabro ended up biting the dust in the chaos. Meanwhile, the prince is low-key thrilled and gives Kim props for wrapping things up perfectly. The sly Edward crushes the paper in front of everyone, saying, "How could this disaster happen in my kingdom?" He fires off a new addition to the territory rules, yelling even if someone claims to be the rightful lord, they'll lose their land if the temple's pope and the king call them unfit. Putting out a new clause about territory management, saying even if someone claims to be the rightful heir of a lord, they're getting booted from their land if the pope of the temple and the king think they're unfit. Then he declares the max number of mercenaries chilling in the territory for over a month can't outnumber half the soldiers stationed there. With that, he smirks while everything goes according to his sick scheme. Meanwhile, Kim's enjoying the city burning, thinking the more peeps bite the dust, the less they'll remember him, just like back on Earth. Just then, the assassin pops up behind him, and our boy asks if he wrapped up his mission. Finishing up, the assassin still has to figure out where Kim's gonna head next, but our dude totally knows what's up, telling the agent it's Kavalov's where those griffins have been popping up lately. Then they drop some knowledge about griffins being this wicked mix of lions and eagles, which he found on some treasure map and can't help but geek out over since they're like his fave creatures. After that, the assassin dips wishing Sir Kim safe travels, and our dude decides to roll out. Out of nowhere, he jumps when he sees the assassin still hanging around, but nah, it's just the paladin girl. Turns out griffins are no joke with eagle heads and lion legs. Peeping these beasts, he thinks the world is both dope and messed up, even though they're gnarly. Those creatures have a totally whack body setup, making them clumsy as they stride on the ground and glide through the sky. But everybody and their mom fears them and hails them as kings of the skies, because even though they've got mad flaws, their power is no joke. With their lion vibes, they roll in packs of about 10. And guess what? Their go-to snacks are horses, so it's no surprise that humans are getting jumped around here all the time. Our guy fills the paladin in saying Kavalov's is the chunky mountain range where those griffins chill, and it's where tons of dudes and their horses pass through. That's why the Adventurers Guild is like, either take out the griffins or wipe them off the map. Pump the girls all in, and Kim warns her that attacks are regular here, so they might not wipe out the last of them, stressing they gotta hunt down the boss griffin and nip it at the bud. While he's still chatting, the paladin is on some random quote, and our guy is totally lost, wondering what the heck she's rambling about while just nodding along. As they stroll, Kim can't help but be confused about why this paladin from the city of the goddess is trailing behind him and calling him master. Must be a wild backstory there. The scene flips back to a few days ago during that chaotic night in Storo when we catch the prince's royal assassin doing Fabro and sneaking out of the castle like a ghost. As the assassin bounces, the paladin spots him and decides to trail the dude, thinking it's super shady that he's slinking out of the lord's pad. Following him, she sees him link up with someone and spots Kim, remembering him from the bar the night before. While she's eavesdropping, she catches the assassin calling the guy Sir Kim, and the paladin freaks and bolts toward him. She calls him out, and Sir Kim turns around to see the paladin from before, thinking he needs to vanish her and bury all the evidence pronto. He halts when the girl gets all hyped, guessing it's the same Sir Kim who cruised on an adventure with the Night Squad, the top knight of all knights, and an actual living legend. Meanwhile, the paladin is totally crushing on him, giving him those sparkly-eyed looks. Kim figures getting out of here without making a scene is the best bet. Pulling out his royal badge, he tells her he's Sir Kim on some top-secret mission and begs her to keep it a total secret that he was ever here. The paladin agrees, but it's not going to be easy. She promises to spill nothing to anyone, only if he takes her under his wing as his disciple, putting him in a tough spot. Kim remembers that paladins are the city's secret power, always under some magic watch to keep military strength in check. Plus, if they get taken out, the tracking spell jumps to the attacker, as the assassin said. So if he wipes out a witness, he'll be marked as wanted in the city of the goddess. So our dude tries to shake her off by loading her with tough chores, like digging a cave with her bare hands without making a peep. Meanwhile, the paladin crushes her task, while Kim's just annoyed at her stubbornness, letting out a major sigh. Later, as they chill in the cave, she dug our dude tells her how griffins are all about bringing food back to their nests, so because of that, they'll have to throw down against them in the Rocky Mountains. The girl thinks her master is a genius, while Kim lays out that they'd have the upper hand waiting in ambush instead of running after them. Likewise, he realizes he totally undersold the paladin's strength, especially because she just dug out this huge cave with her bare hands. Just then, the girl spots a griffin gliding to its nest, with some horse meat chilling under the watch of a crew of other griffins. When she asks what their game plan is, he tells her she should go first. She thinks he's testing her skills and is all about taking the challenge. A bit shaky, the paladin leaps off the cave with her sword ready to fight the griffin, but the beast straight up grabs her face and she warns it to let go, "You ugly jerk." Kim watches her and shakes his head in disbelief, while the paladin eventually trots back to the cave, pumped, telling her master she's totally passed the test with blood dripping from her sword. Looking like he can't even with her, our dude starts going off about how her skills were a total wreck. Based on what he saw, he breaks down the whole deal, pointing out how she kept losing her grip on the sword, thinking it was going to snap, which made her swings super weak. Plus, just kick her to the curb and destroy all evidence. The boy pauses when the girl starts fangirling over him, guessing he's the same Sir Kim who traveled with the warrior crew, the knight of all knights and a living legend. Meanwhile, the paladin is totally obsessed with our dude staring at him with wide, sparkly eyes. Kim thinks it might be best to just slip away quietly. Pulling out his royal badge, the knight super chill introduces himself as Sir Kim and says he's on a mission, asking her to keep it on the down low that he was around. The paladin's like, "Sure, but only if you take me on as your disciple," totally putting him in a tight spot. Kim remembers that paladins are the city's secret weapon, always tracked by magic to save military power, to make it worse if they get taken down. The tracking spell jumps to the attacker, as the assassin told him. This means if he takes out a witness, he'll be the city's most wanted. So, our dude tries to make her bounce by giving her impossible tasks, like digging a cave with her bare hands without a peep. Meanwhile, the paladin handles it like a champ, while Kim's just mad at her stubbornness, letting out a heavy sigh. Later, while chilling in the cave the paladin dug up, he talks about how griffins bring food back to their nests. For that reason, they'll have to hunt them in the Rocky Mountains. The girl looks up to her master and thinks he's super smart. Kim drops the bomb that they'll have the upper hand waiting in ambush instead of chasing after them. Similarly, our dude realizes he totally underestimated the paladin's strength since she just dug this big cave with her bare hands. Suddenly, the girl spots a griffin soaring to its nest with horse meat and guarded by a whole squad of other griffins. When she asks her master what's the play, he tells her to go for it first. She thinks he's testing her skills and jumps at the chance, ready to fight off the griffin while looking all nervous. The beast grabs her with its face while she warns the ugly monster to let go of her. Kim watches, shaking his head in disappointment, but then the paladin comes back to the cave, all pumped to tell her master she's finished the test blood on her sword. Looking totally over it, our guy goes on about how her skills were a hot mess. He says that she kept dropping her grip on the sword, thinking it would break, which made her swings weak. Plus, she kept checking her sword after every hit, slowing her reactions. And since she was focused on her sword, her magic was super slow and off. When the paladin hears all this, she starts tearing up, reminded these are the same critiques she got from her sergeant back in the city. Now she's getting another reality check from the master she. The paladin starts crying when she remembers all the same stuff her sergeant used to say back in the city. Now she's getting a reality wake-up call again from the master she. Totally bummed out, and it's hitting her hard. Kim jumps in and tells the girl to ditch the sword because it's not doing her any good. When she hears this, her face just drops, and the paladin starts questioning if she really is that lame and not knight material. That's when the dude makes his voice pop and tells her to toss the sword. The paladin goes along with it, but starts stressing out, wondering if by throwing the sword away, he's saying she should just fight with her hands instead. Then Kim stands up and warns her about a bunch of griffins chilling on the other side, and tells her to stick by him so he can show off his fighting moves. Just like that, this dude grabs a griffin with his bare hands like it's nothing, and the paladin is shook. While Kim takes out the griffin with his bare hands, no weapon needed. The paladin chick is just staring in disbelief, thinking, what even is this fighting style? The boy thinks nothing of a paladin's skills. This girl rocks a sword as her main jam, but her swordplay is nothing like an actual warrior's. She throws in some light magic with the sword, but she ain't packing the power and skill like the prince. Her body's been modified, so she's super strong physically. Still, she's kind of falling short compared to those saints. Overall, the paladin's got the vibe of a warrior, but she hasn't turned any of that into a power move for herself. Like the griffin's a mashup of an eagle and a lion, but together they're totally useless. Even though this girl could wipe the floor with a squad of humans, she probably wouldn't make it that far before hitting a wall if she rolled out with a warrior. But that's why she's worth teaching, much to Kim's annoyance. But after seeing her throw down earlier, he's changed his mind and is actually interested in showing her the ropes, because that paladin lion heart of hers is just another kind of beast like him. Meanwhile, Kim sees over 10 griffins swooping in and decides to take them all on at once, since that'll get them all riled up. He digs through his coat and finds this small pouch that's like a magic bag made by a top-tier spatial sorcerer from Grand Canine. It looks tiny from the outside, but can fit a crazy amount of stuff inside. The owner can grab and toss out their stuff like it's easy peasy. He pulls out some horse meat that he snagged from the griffin the girl took down. Knowing griffins can't resist horse meat, he dangles it in front of them, and they start drooling over that juicy meat and lean in towards it. The boy goes on about this Chinese martial art called Shang Qing Quan that mimics animal moves and styles. Kim got to learn it once while in China. He thought it could amp up his strength since he could turn into different animals, but he bailed on it pretty quick. Even if he could mimic animals, martial arts need him to be in his human form. As someone who actually uses parts from animals that didn't do him any favors, he figured it was a complete waste of time because it was designed for making the most with limited power. But with his crazy power, it feels more like a ball and chain. His fight style is all about smashing enemies with raw power. When the griffin comes at him, he grips its beak. And even though it jabs through his troll hand, he couldn't care less as it heals up in a flash, saying the griffin should feel honored to be his first big test subject. He then slams the griffin down hard as it crashes and blood sprays everywhere. Turns out the demons he munched on and stuck fit weren't just fish people, but also synthetic creatures like arthropods. That's why now his body can handle the mantis shrimp's front claw. An arthropod can hit with a force 2,500 times its weight, able to take out even the biggest monsters. Grinning creepily, he wonders what wild experiment he should try next. Thinking about that horned lizard trick where it can shoot blood from its eyes, he mixes that image with a blowfish. The girl's watching this insane fight that's just pure brutality, no finesse required. Totally different from a paladin's battle style. Seeing Kim go all out like that gets her heart racing, making her question all that time she spent training back in Deer. She realizes Kim's got the kind of strength that can rip metal apart, so why bother sticking to the basics of martial arts? He doesn't even have to dodge with his insane healing powers. And if the enemy's super tough, he just smashes right through their defenses like no biggie. This makes her think about whether she could roll like him, ditch the sword that's slowing her down, and tap into her instincts to unleash her full potential from within. But then bam, she snaps back and remembers she's a paladin, a loyal servant to the goddess and the face of her holy city. As a knight and a paladin, this girl can't let her instincts lead her astray. Meanwhile, Kim strolls over to her after needs to ditch the sword that's holding her back and trust her gut to unleash her full power. But then she snaps back and reminds herself that she's a paladin, a loyal servant of the goddess and the emblem of her holy city. As a knight and a paladin, this girl can't let her feelings lead her astray. Meanwhile, Kim strides over to her after finishing his task and asks her if she liked the show. The girl jumps a bit when he asks for her thoughts. Hesitantly, she stays quiet at first, and our dude clocks that she's holding back, telling her she doesn't gotta answer right away. Calling him master, she figures he's talking about his own quote. 3 days later, after wiping out all those griffins on the map, they decide to head down, and we can see her heartbeat going all wild with her veins bulging. Seems like they rolled up to the Adventure Guild in Santo Cavalovas, where a rank C adventurer named Jack, who is really Kim, is chilling. The guild employee tells him she knows what he's about to say, but they can't just cancel their request, no matter how much he whines, and they've got orders for him to hand over the Griffin extermination credits to another crew. Next scene, we see Kim all disguised as Jack, a 27-year-old rank C adventurer repping the Sto Cavalovs Guild so he can roam freely. At the guild desk, our guy confirms what he just heard about letting someone else snag the credit for taking out the griffins and wonders how on earth this is even possible. The lady tells him it's an order, and Kim's curiosity is piqued. So he asks her who gave the order, but she shuts him down and makes it clear she can't spill any more tea about that. He figures there's some jerk in the Santo Cavals Adventurers Guild stealing the glory of hard-working adventurers, and he calls the guild employee an accomplice. Threatening the guild employee, the dude smirks and says it'd be hilarious if this guild gossip spread to other regions, clarifying that he ain't the one to spread it, but he might let loose after a drink or two. The employee gets mad and gives him a death stare, putting him in his place. She wonders how a low-ranked adventurer like him dares to threaten the guildmaster, who's supposed to be this big shot, and there's no way he'd even meet a dude like him. Realizing it's the guildmaster who ordered her, Kim tells the girl he wasn't looking to meet him and grabs her wrist, which makes her think he's hitting on her. The lady quickly clarifies that she's got a fiancé, and then she hears some bones cracking and screams as our brutal guy crushes her hand. The scene shifts to Julio Aventuras, the legendary adventurer, the only one to hit rank SS in the guildmaster of the Cavalovas Guild 25 years ago. This dude was part of the warrior squad which dropped a ton of heroic tales and took down the Demon King back in the day. They all got their wishes granted, just like the ones given to monsters and villains. After he got back from his quest and became guildmaster, he flexed mad influence and power as he leveled up his 20-year-long grind. Everything banked on his power, which came from the political capital he had. Thanks to the seriously crazy influence of the Adventurers Guild, Julio spun this tale. But there was no adventurer in that warrior crew this time, because the king took steps before Julio could snag the kingdom. So the second prince ended up being the hero, and now folks are all about the crown instead of the freedom symbol. He was stressed about needing to whip up a hero from the Adventurers Guild before it was too late to boost their status. Like his son, Jorge Aventuras, who's arguing with his dad over not taking credit for someone else's grind, because even if he becomes a hero, it'd be pointless. His dad tells him to wise up and let him know it's not out of love. He's all about making a hero. He reminds Jorge that he's the son of the adventurer who helped take down the Demon King 25 years ago. Pops adds that he needs this story to swag up his epic background because it all hangs on whether he becomes one or not. While they're debating, they hear a scream, and Jorge bolts at the sound of his fiancée's voice, only to find her lying on the floor with a busted wrist. Furious Jorge goes all out swinging at him, but our guy snags his weapon and chokes him. Holding the broken sword with his other hand, the dude makes a fierce slash that goes right through Jorge's head. Shocked, Julio watches his son get taken out so brutally and screams. Without missing a beat, Kim asks him if he's the guildmaster and introduces himself as Jack the rank adventurer. Grabbing his sword, the adventurer recognizes him and apologizes for trying to snag credit for his work, while Kim turns and pieces out after hearing the sorry. Stunned by Kim's icy vibe, Julio rants that he messed up. His guild members crushed his daughter-in-law's arm and took out his son. Our boy just points to the girl and says she wouldn't get the guildmaster, so he made her do it. The other dude came at him, so he just defended himself. And lastly, his son tried to off him, so he got him first. With that, he chooses to bail. And Julio, who looks like he's about to explode, yells at him, asking if that's all he's got to say. He thinks Kim's just acting on someone else's orders and asks what he wants. But Kim clarifies that he has zero interest and doesn't even care about getting credit for his grind. But it all hangs on whether he becomes one or not. While they're talking, they hear a scream, and Jorge bolts at the sound of his fiancée's voice, only to see her laying on the floor with a busted wrist. Furious Jorge swings his sword at him, but our guy grabs his weapon and chokes him. Holding the broken sword with the other hand, the dude makes a vicious slash that goes right through Jorge's head. Traumatized by the sight, Julio sees his son get taken out so brutally and screams, staying totally chill. Kim asks him if he's the guildmaster and introduces himself as Jack the rank adventurer. Grabbing his sword, the adventurer recognizes him and apologizes for trying to snag credit for his work. While Kim peace out after hearing the sorry. Shocked to see Kim's ice-cold demeanor, Julio lets loose that he beat up his guild members, smashed his daughter-in-law's arm, and took his son's life. Our dude just points to the girl and says she wouldn't even get the guildmaster, so he made her do it. The other dude came for him, so he just defended himself. And in the end, his son tried to off him, so he took him out first. And with that, he decides to bounce. And Julio, who looks like he's about to blow, yells at him, asking if that's all he's got to say. He thinks Kim's just acting on someone else's orders and asks what he wants. But Kim clarifies he has no interest and doesn't even bother about getting credit for his grind. Once something's his, he ain't letting anyone swipe it without his say-so. And if he had given a heads up, none of this mess would have happened. Just like that. Kim bails after throwing some cold justification, while Julio is hit with a harsh dose of reality. He realizes everything he did was just for himself, not for all those adventurers out there. He wishes he hadn't forced others to make sacrifices for future generations. But that's all water under the bridge now, because that jerk has already wrecked his family and stolen his future. That's when Julio decides to rally the guilds, like King Bird, Feathers, the Three Swords, the Youth of Vertival, and Cyclone Axe, to take down Kim's future. Now we jump to the paladin, who's stuck in her thoughts about her training days in the city of the goddess, just smashing swords left and right. The instructor was always all over her, saying she had way better physical skills than the rest, but she just couldn't control them. Deep in her thoughts, she remembers her mentor saying she'd be the king of the jungle if she were a beast. But as a paladin, total failure. Those words just keep echoing, and the paladin thinks about Master Kim, who taught her to unleash her powers without holding anything back. But that goes against her paladin training, leaving her confused about whose words to believe. Meanwhile, a bunch of guys are pointing out the spot where Jack the C-rank adventurer is crashing. After that, Kim runs into Julio on the way and is like, "What's up? I already accepted the apology." But Julio's fuming, throwing down if Kim remembers the kid he killed, confessing that kid was his son. Heartbroken, the dad questions how a loser like Kim would understand the pain of losing a child. Surprisingly, Kim says he knows it all too well. That savage continues saying he's got more childless dads than anyone else after orphans and widows, and all of them just yammer on about getting revenge. Julio can't believe how shameless this guy is raging as he asks what happened to those dads who wanted revenge. Our dude then points to himself like, "I'm still here, duh." At that moment, Julio snaps and charges at Kim, who looks totally unbothered. He whips out his sword and jumps towards him, calling him an idiot. With his sword in hand, Julio brags about how he's been honing his aura for decades, claiming this power can slice dragon scales like butter. Sure, he might be an old dude, but he's part of the previous gen of the warrior squad and the only rank S adventurer in the world. Showing off, Julio swings his sword right for Kim's neck. But this dude never backs down and takes Julio out in a heartbeat, blood gushing everywhere. Stepping back, Kim notices a bunch of guys running away, like their lives depend on it, screaming about a monster. He's like totally confused as they rush past him. And it's obvious they're not afraid of him. Just then he catches sight of a cold-blooded massacre with blood spilling all over the streets and sees the paladin chilling nearby, with blood dripping from her hands. The girl's shaking with fear, tears down her face, looking at her master and calling for him. Not even flinching, Kim leans against a wall, pulls out his magic pouch, and yanks out a hefty piece of griffin leg. He starts munching while the paladin wipes her tears and sits next to him. Kim asks if she wants a bite, and she nods. To his surprise, the paladin digs in like she's starving, which kinda lifts her mood. Meanwhile, the girl's devouring the meat like a wild beast. Kim's side-eyeing her, thinking griffin meat ain't that great. You know it's a hybrid monster after all. After they finish eating, the paladin spills to him that folks think the goddess gives paladins their super strength, but really, they're just humans tweaked by some simple saint manufacturing process. Figuring it's not exactly news. Kim already caught this info from the prince earlier. Shaking the girl goes on to say that paladins are test subjects for experimenting with abilities for future saints. She ends with her hand, which is swollen and looks a lot like a troll's hand, clenching her fist. The girl lets out that she can't shake this weird impulse. Kim finally understands why he felt some sort of connection when he first met her. Then we discover that Kim never even thought of his parents as the same kind of life as him. Same goes for that gross pig-like brother. That's why he always kept his distance and hid his skills. But oddly enough, he showed the paladin everything without holding back, because she's just as much of a monster as he is. Kim then remembers how they totally messed this place up and wiped out the adventure guild of Kavalava's guildmaster included. Shaking off those thoughts, our dude tells the paladin to grab a carriage ticket because they can't hang around here anymore. When the girl asks where he's headed, Kim tells her he's got some unfinished business and promises it won't take long. As soon as the girl bolts to grab the tickets, a voice calls out to Kim. It sounds like the assassin who caught their convo, but our dude asks for some cash, and the assassin hands him a pouch. Meanwhile, Kim's in deep thought, realizing that the big shots thought paladins were being used like guinea pigs to make Saint Tesses. There's no solid evidence, but what the paladin said backs that theory up. The assassin then spills that he scored him some travel dough and a new identity, Jack, a 26-year-old Class 4 merc who's part of the Spurs merc clan from Almaruz. As the guy gears up for his next gig, the assassin asks where he's off to next, and Kim's like, "I'm hitting up Santo Canargo." Off he goes for his mission as a merc. Kim's thinking back to Santo Canargo, the spot where he first ran into Prince Edward, and he's pretty hyped to catch up with some old pals as a secret guardian knight, especially Old Man Baron.